This is the best of times. The Shanghai Consortium has discovered dozens of habitable planets in the Great Magellanic Galaxy. The Galactic Heavy Industries Group has found a great number of resource planets in the Beha Galaxy comprising 360 major categories and more than 3,000 minor categories of resources. On the front lines, the Federation's 3rd Battleship Fleet and 6th Raider Fleet have launched a full-scale offensive against the Zerg. The Pan-Galactic Interstellar Federation's highest executive dudome has issued a conscription order calling upon citizens to actively devote themselves to the war against the Zerg. In a cramped rental apartment, Su Ming watched the information streaming across his light brain. Yet inwardly, he muttered to himself, though the situation appeared overwhelmingly favorable on the surface. Upon discovering a habitable planet, the discoverer is entitled to enjoy 30% of that planet's permanent tax revenue. Yet for ordinary people, this is a path they can never realistically walk. Barring unforeseen miracles, a Federation citizen who spends an entire lifetime of 270 years is unlikely to earn enough to pay for even a single warp engine. And a half-decent starship must at least be equipped with 3 warp engines. To discover a habitable world in the boundless sea of stars, and then still be able to hold it until the righteous warships of the Federation arrive. That is nothing short of a madman's dream. Fortunately, I have a cheat, he murmured. Otherwise, after painstakingly completing all the courses at the Starship Academy, he would not even be able to pilot the most basic interstellar cruiser. He did not truly belong to this era, or rather the age in which he had previously existed had already vanished. Of course, this was not transmigration in the conventional sense. It was normal reincarnation, safeguarded and guided by the surviving fragments of a certain holobook. Yet none of those dog-blooded melodramatic events ever appeared in his life. In this lifetime, his parents died on the front lines. His status as a 3-star citizen and his admission to the Starship Academy were all owed to the sacrifices of his parents. Within the Pan-Galactic Interstellar Federation, the concept of citizenship is deeply ingrained in people's hearts. Residents of the Star Federation automatically obtain citizen status upon reaching adulthood. However, they begin as 0-star citizens, for they have not yet contributed anything to the Federation. Children may inherit their parents' citizen contribution points, but if a citizen refuses to shoulder the responsibilities expected of them, their citizen rank will be reduced. It was the best of times, and it was the worst of times. Su Ming pushed open the window of his rental room and looked out toward the distant 3 bright moons. He said, "Xiao Luo, analyze all classes of Federation warships, select the optimal ratio, liquidate all our stocks, and calculate our best possible choice." For a Sunto graduate of the Starship Academy, the Sea of Stars was meant to be their true destination. The artificial intelligence evolved from the audiobook fragment replied, "After comparing 76 classes of Federation warships and the ship purchasing quota granted by the Academy, your optimal choices are the Federation Kumpan-class Interstellar Type 3 cruiser and the Federation Jinhua-class Interstellar carrier." She continued, "And the Shanhei-class interstellar battleship supervised during the tenure of former highest executive Li Nanfeng." Su Ming gazed at the 3-dimensional projection on his light brain and sank into deep contemplation. The Kunpeng Type 3 cruiser boasted formidable firepower and high cruising speed along with the most advanced shields. Naturally, its price was far from modest. The Jinhua-class Starry Sky carrier could deploy 150,000 unmanned attack craft and bombers in a single wave. It was the Federation's primary reliance on the front lines against the Zerg. Naturally, it was not for sale. Even as a 3-star citizen, and with the ship purchasing privilege granted by the Starship University, he still could not afford it. Su Ming then shifted his gaze to the final choice, the Shanhei-class interstellar battleship. This was a true ferocious behemoth of war. On its main gun deck alone, 15 big-caliber primary gun turrets were arranged, each turret mounting 5 barrels. The 28 50mm caliber embodied a dignity that brooked no offense. Back then, in order to cater to Executive Li Nanfeng, who was later forced from office ahead of time, the Shanhei-class battleship's primary artillery even included 3 5-barrel primary turrets that fired solid shells. To offset the enormous recoil, the tonnage of the Shanhei-class interstellar battleship kept soaring upward. In the end, its total displacement approached more than 16 billion tons. Once such a colossal vessel landed on a habitable planet, if its ship stabilizers were not engaged, it would trigger tides across the planet. Aluo checked the current price of a Shanhei-class Starry Sky battleship and the shipyard responsible for it, he said. Perhaps during Li Nanfeng's tenure, the Shanhei-class had been strictly non-commercial. Yet Li Nanfeng, due to certain issues with his conduct, had been impeached by the council and removed from office ahead of schedule. The newly appointed leader had no fondness for mounting gunpowder-powered main cannons on interstellar warships. In his view, such artillery should have been swept straight into the trash heap. But in Su Ming's eyes, it is always solid shells that resolve matters in the end. The 28 50mm caliber of justice, from the instant it leaves the barrel, is destined never to be ordinary. Aluo answered calmly. A total of 18 Shanhei-class interstellar battleships have been constructed, and most are currently in active service. However, there is one hull whose main structure has been largely completed in the warship shipyard on Karen Star. The remaining work had stalled because the Federation's 7th shipyard on Karen Star was short of funds and could no longer keep construction going. Looking at the serene projection of Aluo in her palace attire, Su Ming said, "Aluo, contact the director of that shipyard. We can offer a more generous kickback. See how many credit points it would take for us to secure that battleship." To be sure, above Starry Sky battleships, there are planet killer ships, mobile interstellar fortresses, and Starry Sky arsenal ships. But vessels tens of kilometers long are not something a mere student like him can hope to meddle with. Aluo said with a smile, "Ming, the message has been sent. The quantum computer is already severely restricting my calculations. I truly hope that the main control center cluster on the battleship will allow me to unleash my full computational capacity." She was after all a page from the holobook. Even if only a single page, she had once been among those turned by Fushi himself. Su Ming said, "But after this liquidation we cannot make any major moves for quite a long time. I suspect those consortiums have already sensed something amiss. Money as a concept had long disappeared, though only credit points remained working in tandem with contribution points. Yet the chives are still chives, whatever must be harvested will inevitably be harvested. The Federation stock market continues to fleece people day after day. Were it not for the predictive power of the holobook, he would probably not even dare dream of buying a Starry Sky battleship now. He would have to think twice even about purchasing a mere interstellar destroyer." Aluo said, "Oh, understood." Moments later, her projection vanished from the rental room. Su Ming sighed helplessly. "Aluo, you will surely love the main control center cluster on the Starry Sky battleship." After who knows how many years of drifting through fate, he was reborn anew while the holobook had evolved into a true artificial intelligence. Yet in his eyes, Aluo resembled more closely the spirit of a legendary artifact. According to Aluo, in ancient times divine beings ruled the world, yet the Federation had found no trace whatsoever of such deities. Now, however, human warships could easily obliterate a star. Cultivation in this era has become merely a means to extend one's lifespan. No matter how profound one's cultivation, under the barrage of main battleship guns and layered force fields, could anyone truly punch through armor coated with materials imbued with strong interaction forces. Warships are the true leitmotif beneath the starry sky. Several days later, Su Ming arrived on Karen Star aboard a transport starship operated by the Kunping Transport Group. As an class habitable planet, Karen Star's overall conditions were almost identical to Earth save for its comparatively smaller oceans. According to the records of the Starship Academy, roughly 3 centuries ago, Karen Star had once been the richest resource world in the southeastern star region. Yet with the advent of the great shipbuilding era, this world had long since been ravaged and left scarred. Aside from 3 colossal warship graveyards, only the 7th shipyard of Karen Star still remained not yet fully dismantled. The former glory of the Federation, the 7th shipyard of Karen Star, the design base of the Shanhei-class interstellar battleships. "It is a pity that all of that has already vanished," Su Ming murmured. He gazed at the dilapidated gate before him, unable to suppress a surge of emotion. No matter how glorious the 7th shipyard of Karen Star had once been, that brilliance now existed only in memory. In its present state, the 7th shipyard of Karen Star was already teetering on the brink of shutdown. He truly ought to thank Lordly Nanfeng. Without that man's intervention, the idea of personally purchasing an interstellar battleship would have been nothing more than a fool's dream. Those without resources could not possibly afford such a vessel, while those with ample means had long since used family backing to establish their own development fleets. Battleships were exorbitantly expensive, and in most eyes simply not cost-effective. Put bluntly, the sacrifices demanded were grossly disproportionate to the returns. In a sense, once an interstellar battleship purchased by a private individual set sail, it became like a solitary wolf roaming the void. Without large interstellar destroyers or interstellar cruisers to provide escort, such a vessel traveled alone. As for the few 500-meter light destroyers it carried, those craft were designed solely for combat within planetary atmospheres. Apart from performing strikes against ground targets, they were fundamentally incapable of matching the battleship's level of engagement. By contrast, an interstellar battleship relied on its escort craft, its starspace bombers, and drones specialized for boarding actions, along with a vast array of electromagnetic railgun Closian defense turrets and phase-based Closian cannons. These comprised the day-to-day firepower of a starspace battleship. Its main guns were rarely brought to bear. Yet once those primary cannons were unleashed, it was never a trivial affair. Only another interstellar battleship could truly withstand the might of such main batteries. Yet at this very moment, the interior of the 7th shipyard of Karen Star was seething with uproar. Director Wu Chuanfeng, head of the 7th Shipyard of Karen Star, was striving with all his strength to maintain. However, the employees who had served the 7th Shipyard of Karen Star for decades clearly had no intention of showing Director Wu Chunming any goodwill. "Wu brat, I watched you grow up," an elderly worker bellowed. "How is it that now your wings have hardened and you dare to dismantle the ship? Do you have any idea? For that vessel we have given everything we had. We finally managed to complete the primary structure, and now you want..." Cries echoed through the crowd. "Wu Chuanfeng, get down here. Wu Chunming, get down here. Whoever dares dismantle the ship, I'll fight them to the end." Wu Chunfeng turned a helpless gaze toward the technical director at his side and asked, "Wang'an, is there any way we can still complete that vessel?" Wang'an glanced at the enraged workers outside the window and replied, "Director, I understand your feelings. That Shanhai-class interstellar battleship may have its primary structure finished, but it still lacks 15 quintuple-mounted 2850 caliber main guns from the Crooker Company. We also require 360 electromagnetic railgun Closian turrets from Starship Heavy Industries' 16 phase-based Closian cannon, arrays a total of 150 dispersed 640 caliber secondary guns in the central control cluster. Moreover, we still need the ammunition production lines, the drone bomber manufacturing lines, and most crucially, the auxiliary light brain system. In short, I need a powerful 7th Shipyard of Karen Star to finish this, and that level of strength is something the shipyard no longer possesses." Constructing an interstellar battleship was anything but simple. It was a weapon of national significance. Had Lord Li Nanfeng not been forced from office, this interstellar battleship might have become one of the foundations of humanity's power in the Star Sea. Wu Chunfeng let out a helpless sigh. "I should have foreseen this. Still, rest assured, I have already found an owner for this interstellar battleship. Lord Wang, and the outstanding credit points owed to our workers will be settled once Lord Su Ming signs a contract with the 7th Shipyard of Karen Star. As the 16th Director of the 7th Shipyard of Karen Star, I hereby order the shipyard to enter wartime production mode." This was also Lord Su Ming's request. The 7th Shipyard of Karen Star had been idle for far too long. It was time for the shipyard to become busy once more, even in the final period before the 7th Shipyard of Karen Star was slated for dismantling. Wang'an straightened his gaze solemn as he bowed. "Understood, Director Wu Chunfeng. Yet I still wish to ask, what is the price of this ship?" As technical director of the 7th Shipyard of Karen Star, he was entitled to know the cost. He also had the authority to submit a formal query to the Federal Starship Industry Council regarding this entire. Listening to the cacophony of curses rising from below, Wu Chunfeng said, "Setting aside the 100 billion credit points exempted by the Starship Academy, the remaining price of this vessel is 270,620 million credit points. The ultimate destination of this warship should be the Sea of Stars, not gathering dust in a battleship graveyard on Karen Star. Many experts deem this vessel seriously outdated. A starship does not simply die. It only gradually withers." With that thought, the haggard Wu Chunfeng descended from the office building and stepped out onto the central square. The workers who had been shouting furiously moments ago all retreated several steps. As Wu Chunfeng walked forward, thousands of employees spontaneously opened a path for him. Looking toward the young man in the distance, Wu Chunfeng said, "You must be Lord Su Ming. I am Wu Chunfeng of the 7th Shipyard of Karen Star. I have received your email. If you are willing, we can proceed to sign the contract immediately." At that moment, an elderly man with snow-white hair stepped out from behind Wu Chunfeng and demanded, "Do you truly intend to dismantle this ship?" This vessel embodied the lifeblood of every employee of the 7th Shipyard of Karen Star, and it was also the shipyard's crowning achievement. As a former member of the fleet, the old man could not bear to see this ship taken apart. Su Ming's gaze fell upon the badge faded with countless washings on the elder's work uniform. Suddenly, he bowed with deep respect. "Starship Academy Battleship Command Department Class 3 of Cohort 1765, trainee Su Ming pays his respects to his senior. You are a warrior of human civilization. On behalf of all students of Class 3 Cohort 1765 of the Starship Academy, I offer you our highest respect. Soldiers who bore the weight of humanity's future upon their shoulders should not be left to fade into anonymity." Su Ming recognized that particular badge. His own dean possessed one just like it. It was the commemorative medal awarded to survivors of a desperate assault carried out 176 years ago during humanity's grand battle against the Zerg. Out of a fleet of 700,000, fewer than 70 lived to see the end. It was precisely because of their heroic sacrifice that human civilization secured victory in that campaign. The old man straightened his bent back and returned the salute. "Federal Interstellar Fleet 9th Fleet 16th Subfleet Battleship Juesher, First Officer, Chunhu." Wu Chunfeng was left staring dumbfounded. Even the old man's son had never imagined that his father, who seemed to do nothing but wander idly all day, carried such a past. No one had known that behind his unremarkable daily life lay such history. Not long after the employees gathered in front of the Karun Star's 7th shipyard slowly dispersed. In an instant, the shipyard seemed to return to the fervent era of the past. Meanwhile, 300 kilometers away from the office building of the Karun Star's 7th shipyard in a dock, under the guidance of Wu Chuanfeng, Su Ming had passed through numerous checks and finally met the completed structure of a Shanghai-class battleship. Standing at a height of 4,600 meters, a length of over 12,900 meters, and a width of 5,600 meters, the last Shanghai-class battleship slowly docked in the shipyard like a towering mountain. As a student of the Starship Academy, Su Ming had seen many warships and even boarded the most advanced starfighter of the Federation. However, standing this close in front of an interstellar battleship was a first for him. Even after 2 lifetimes, Su Ming fell into deep contemplation. Looking at the endless warships, Su Ming said, "Director Wu, I am just an ordinary student of the Starship Academy. The insect race has always threatened the borders of the Federation, and that is an undeniable fact. Therefore, what I need is not an interstellar yacht, but a true battleship. A battleship that once roamed the turbulent oceans in ancient times. Great ships, giant cannons. I have always believed that dignity lies only at the tip of the sword and truth only within the range of cannons." This interstellar battleship was vast, yet there was not a single inch of extra space on this fortress of war. Wu Chunfeng replied with a serious expression, "Such modifications require many credit points and also involve certain military key certifications. If Your Excellency Su Ming cannot provide the key certifications, I'm afraid I will be powerless to assist you." Even with the sale of the Pioneer Act, some large-scale weapons of mass destruction were prohibited from being installed on Star-class battleships. Now this student from the Starship Academy actually wanted to install such things. Without the keys, it was simply a Su Ming looked at the engineering robots starting to get busy in the dock and handed a small light brain to Wang and saying, "You can verify that the Starship Academy has authorized me to install the antimatter main cannon. In life, there are always many things beyond our control. Even students from the Starship Academy may not always sail smoothly. This can be considered a severance fee given by that old tyrant who meddles with love. It is indeed inappropriate for someone like him who has not even a single starship to think too much." Wang took the small light brain and after verification said, "Director Wu, there is no problem with the verification. This is a direct confirmation from the Dantai family." He could never have imagined that this seemingly unremarkable student from the Starship Academy had such a close relationship with the esteemed Dantai family of the Federation. Wu Chunfeng said, "Since the authorization is fine, the antimatter main cannon can be installed, although the model is somewhat outdated. However, His Excellency Li Nanfeng favored that model back in the day. Great ships, giant cannons. The 3,050mm caliber antimatter main cannon will unleash antimatter beams that will obliterate all enemies in front of the battleship. Unfortunately, such an antimatter main cannon can no longer be mounted on a battleship." Su Ming smiled and said, "Thank you, His Excellency Li Nanfeng. Without him, I would not even be able to afford a Shanghai-class battleship now." "Then, Your Excellency Su Ming, what name will your ship bear?" Wang asked. "A ship must be registered with the Federation's Starship Management and Assessment Committee before leaving the factory. Unregistered starships cannot dock at the Federation's spaceports and planetary surfaces across the galaxy." Su Ming replied without hesitation, "As a student, my mission is to explore the boundaries of the universe. Just as its ranking suggests, named after mountains and rivers under the illumination of the sun and moon, all are the territories of human civilization. Ship number 334,611. Star date 3346-1106. My parents in this life sacrificed on the battlefield against the insect race. To explore the stars and the sea, and then take revenge on the insect race, if possible, to bring Dantai Yunya home." His dreams were not grand, it was merely that the old tyrant had been meddling in love, and even Dantai Yunya had been hidden away by him who knows where. Wang replied seriously, "That is quite a nice name. I believe this interstellar battleship with a level 6 warp speed will definitely appear on the battlefield against the insect race. Although the front line between the Federation and the insect race has been calm for over 100 years, the survivors who participated in that great war still believe that the insect race will not give up on invading human civilization's territories. The territories of human civilization were gained by our ancestors using primitive flying vehicles, one star system at a time. Although the human territory is vast, there is not a single inch to spare." Su Ming looked at Wang and said, "I have already understood the preliminary weaponry. In addition to the close defense electromagnetic cannons and phase array systems, the Shanghai also has 3 large, 3 medium, and 3 small electromagnetic cannon groups arranged on the front, rear, and both sides of the armor belt. However, I hope to modify the 15 interstellar torpedo and missile units on the main deck into 60 medium-sized units. The lower deck of the Shanghai is sequentially arranged with starfighter hatches, main escort boat hatches, or hatches cargo hatches, and finally the star mecha launch bay and orbital drop hatches. These also need to be refined, they are too large. If If they are hit, the Shanghai will lose part of its combat capability. Wu Chunfeng asked, Your Excellency, Su Ming, do you not trust shield technology? You should know that the Shanghai is equipped with level 5 shields, and each hatch and small escort hatches have their own energy shields. Major parts are also protected by multiple layers of shields. The outermost layer is a split-merge shield, which is considered top-notch technology. Although some people say that the Shanghai-class interstellar battleship is outdated in terms of combat power, it cannot be denied that the Shanghai-class is a first-rate bona fide interstellar battleship. In addition to heavy shields, there are multi-layered armor protections and a nanobug armor auto-repair system. Its main structure is made from a large amount of pseudo-star core material alloys, and the service life of this battleship is at least over 1,400 years. As long as it is not destroyed, this interstellar battleship can be passed down for several generations. This is why the price of interstellar battleships is so expensive. Su Ming looked at the Shanghai, now crowded with engineering robots, and calmly said, Director Wu, the moment the shields are installed on the battleship, it is destined that one day the shields will be destroyed. Therefore, we can only rely on the armor layer, which is also the reason I chose the interstellar battleship. Every layer of armor on the Shanghai has a minimum thickness of 750 millimeters, and in the thickest parts, it even reaches 1,500 millimeters. This does not include the thickness of the armor function layer. This is just the pure armor thickness. The Shanghai has a total of 7 such layers of armor. After all, there is a reason why interstellar battleships are called interstellar battleships. This left Wu Chunfeng speechless. Do people from the Starship Academy not know how to engage in combat? At this moment, Wang had stepped forward and said, Your Excellency, Su Ming, if possible, we can proceed with the transfer of authority now and then start the payment. In his view, their director had been idly chatting with His Excellency Su Ming without any meaning. It was more important to settle this matter quickly. Such a generous benefactor is hard to find even with a lantern these days. All right, let's go to the Shanghai's main control cluster to transfer authority. Then, under Wu Chunfeng's guidance, Su Ming boarded the transport ship and entered the Shanghai from the side small escort hatch. Once inside the Shanghai, Wu Chunfeng also activated the navigation system. After all, it would be a hassle to locate the main control cluster inside such a massive ship. Heaven knows how many paths there are inside this starship. After all, aside from certain key positions, there are less than 100 pure human crew members aboard an interstellar battleship. Moreover, some captains even prefer to recruit extraterrestrial races with unreliable prophetic abilities. The space inside the Shanghai was vast, but most corridors could not compare to the luxury of the Jinhua-class interstellar aircraft carrier. However, the corridors of the Shanghai gave a sense of deep steadiness. Su Ming liked this feeling. According to his notes, a Luo had almost determined in his prophecy. There will definitely be a war between the Federation and the insect race. With the war imminent, time waits for no one. Inside the battleship Shanghai, after undergoing dozens of verification procedures, Su Ming and his companions finally arrived at the location of the main control center cluster of the Shanghai battleship. This is the core of the Shanghai. If the battleship is the hardware, then the main control center cluster is the software. Without software, hardware is meaningless. Looking at the supermaterial computer that only has the main control brain installed, Su Ming felt quite helpless. In such a large shipyard, they had not even completed the installation of the supermaterial computer for the main control center cluster. Apart from basic guarantees, there were no other auxiliary brains either. In a word, it was absolutely frustrating. Wu Chunfeng awkwardly smiled and said, Lord Su Ming, please rest assured. As soon as your credit points are received, Shanghai Heavy Industries will immediately ship the goods. Without any credit points in hand, even he, the factory director, found it difficult to make a meal without rice. Su Ming sighed and said, Then let's get started as soon as possible. I can't wait any longer. Without a battleship, the Starship Academy students felt like land soldiers without their armor. Wu Chunfeng nodded and said, The 18th Shanghai-class battleship is starting the transfer of authority. Verifier Wu Chuanfeng, director of the Kurun Star Shipyard. Verifier Kurun Star Shipyard, technical director of the Federation, special investigator of the Starship Affairs Committee. Then on the screen within the main control center cluster, an elderly man in military uniform appeared and said sternly, According to the Pioneer Act and the Intergalactic Federation's battle plan against the insect race and the Citizen Ranking Act, as a 3-star citizen of the Federation, Lord Su Ming, you will be granted the rank of Reserve Major of the Your battleship may be called upon by the Federation's Starship Command to confront the insect race on the front lines. Do you agree to purchase the Shanghai Interstellar Battleship and accept the rank? This was a question from an experienced veteran. Buying an interstellar battleship is not something that can be done easily. After military authorization, although this battleship belonged to Su Ming, in many cases, it must assist the military. The military will also open the airspace. After all, many times battleships purchased by citizens cannot be fully equipped. At this time, the military also needs to provide some combat force assistance to citizens. Su Ming looked at the veteran and said, Just as General, your speech before that battle stated the journey of the Starship Academy students is inherently the vast sea of stars. The best destiny for the students of the Starship Academy is to spend their lives aboard their own battleship. From the moment they become captains, it is destined that captains should sync with their battleships. Except, after purchasing the battleship, he simply could not staff it adequately. An interstellar battleship requires at least 100 personnel for the main positions along with at least 8,000 biological robots, over 30,000 humanoid engineering robots, as well as at least 3,000 onboard security robots. It requires at least 2 flight squadrons and more than 300 unmanned combat drone operators, a mech combat squad with a composition of 600 people, and a ground combat brigade with 3,000 personnel. Only then does it count as a complete starship configuration. It seems the military will provide assistance, but during the assistance period, the military expenses of these personnel must be earned by him alone when not in combat. However, there are many benefits. At least a fully equipped interstellar battleship has enough suppressive power when facing smaller nations of human civilization. As a part of the ancient era's intergalactic federation, what they love to do most is to sail their battleships to reason with others within the galaxy and the surrounding star systems. No one dares to refuse the peace of the intergalactic federation. After a long while, the veteran smiled and said, "Well, as a disciple of Chun Xuanming, I'm not surprised that you can make such a choice. However, regarding that matter, no one can help you." Wu Chunfeng and Wang were puzzled. But as the person involved, Su Ming naturally knew what was going on. He said, "General, we know our own business. Are you afraid I might attempt to elope?" The old general laughed heartily and then asked, "Wouldn't you? An interstellar battleship of the Shanghai class can turn a planet into an asteroid belt within 30 minutes. Although that family has a great influence in the business world, you should know that the Federation restricts them. With great wealth, they can't expect to have powerful battleships and likewise. If it weren't for the proposal from the Huaxiao region back, then perhaps the Federation would have long fallen into chaos. Glory to our Huaxiao region." Su Ming innocently said, "General, I am just an ordinary student. How could I do such a thing?" Although he said so in his heart, he had planned such a scenario more than once. The success rate was quite good. "All right, I won't tease you anymore. The military will come to your starship according to standards, and it is expected that they will arrive within 3 months. The old general then said, "As a starship student, I believe you should be aware that the insect race is making significant movements. You and your batch should be ready to go to the front lines. As someone who has been through it, I must remind you to bring as much as you can of ammunition production lines, weapon production lines, and engineering machinery production lines. War is unavoidable. Many years ago, it was he who sent these young people to the battlefield. Now it's the same." Su Ming nodded and said, "Thank you for your guidance, senior." Then the screen went dark. Wu Chunfeng said, "Lord Su Ming, do you know this old general? This person is not an ordinary individual. Senior military officers from the Federation Starship Command usually oversee battleship transactions at the regional general level. I didn't expect that Lord Su Ming is truly remarkable, directly attracting the attention of this old general." Su Ming smiled and said, "I'm not too familiar, but this old general is quite acquainted with my teacher." Then Su Ming walked to the authority transfer chamber, slowly inserted the quantum chip carrying Aloe into the slot, and then laid down in the cabin. Wu Chunfeng and Wang exited the main control center cluster of the Shanghai, starting the transfer of Starship Captain Authority. The main control brain installation slot has been opened, beginning identity confirmation. Holographic appearance confirmed. Iris confirmed. Brainwave confirmed. DNA double helix confirmed. Cultivation wave confirmed. Genetic optimization level confirmed. Biological frequency computer has been loaded. Neuron link has been activated. Artificial intelligence loading started. 30%, 65%, 100%. Lord Su Ming, welcome to become the first captain of the Shanghai interstellar battleship. Shanghai feels extremely honored. Looking at the elegantly dressed battleship main control brain, he finally understood what Aloe had done. Was he really such a capricious person? At this moment, slander you, defame me. Su Ming opened his eyes and calmly said, "I feel greatly honored that Shanghai can accompany you. I hope that in the future Shanghai can work with Aloe to control this interstellar battleship. As an interstellar battleship, in addition to the main control brain, there should also be auxiliary brains and think tanks. Operating a battleship weighing 160 billion tons is not a simple task." Shanghai said, "I have already seen Aloe. The wisdom that Aloe possesses is beyond what Shanghai can catch up with. As the main artificial intelligence of the Shanghai, she can perceive the wisdom that Aloe has." Su Ming replied, "Shanghai, I have authorized my account password to you. The credit points inside are sufficient to pay for the purchase of the starship and subsequent expenses. Proceed with material procurement according to the highest level combat agreement. War is likely to come. As a student of the Starship Academy, one is always particularly sensitive to the onset of war." Shanghai understood, "Captain. On the planet Kalen, The 7th shipyard of Kalen, which had been barely surviving, suddenly sparked a heated public discussion on Kalen with the help of a certain wealthy benefactor. Although many media outlets were eager to interview that wealthy benefactor, they quickly extinguished their desires upon seeing the red line drawn by the Federal Landing Operations Mobile Forces. These journalists, realizing the situation, decided not to take any risks. If it were any other situation, they might have dared to push forward. However, in a military-restricted area, any forced entry could lead to immediate lethal force. As the 7th Special Operations Brigade, which had fought at the front line against the insect race, was suddenly reassigned to reserve duty, it was truly disheartening. Although he had been promoted from a captain to a general. However, as the commander of the 7th Special Operations Brigade of the Federal Mobile Landing Forces, His Excellency Lin Yuan was particularly frustrated. What is this nonsense? We were doing well on the front lines, and now we've been called back. Lin Yuan vented his dissatisfaction. In his view, those in the command were simply messing things up. If this chaotic situation continued, the Federation would eventually be dragged down by them. Beside him, Chief of Staff Lu Kun, holding a cup of tea, said, "Things are not that simple. I conducted a brief investigation on that Su Ming. He seems to be a very lucky student from the Starship Academy. Old Lin, the 7th Special Operations Brigade, has had it tough these years. You need to think for your brothers." The 7th Special Operations Brigade was responsible for the dirtiest and hardest tasks, while the glory went to others. All of this is inseparable from their commander, who prefers to challenge orders on the battlefield. If it weren't for the protection of those old timers, he might have already withdrawn from the military. Though I may be reckless, I am not foolish. Lin Yuan said with a serious expression, "It is evident that this Su Ming has already prepared for war with the production lines of Shanghai Heavy Industries, the equipment from Kruger, and mining ships from the Excavator Industrial Group, all being sent in recently." He had an unerringly accurate intuition about war. That Su Ming has indeed prepared for war. However, the training outline provided by the Mountain River-class secondary AI is rather peculiar. From his understanding, this should be a typical planetary landing operation. Moreover, it involves precise drops during orbital airdrops, but city combat seems a bit off. Typically, in such situations, their usual choice is to conduct bombardments, carpet bombings. Lu Kun smiled slightly and said, "There's a little rumor. I wonder if you, my brigade commander, would be interested." Lin Yuan spread his hands and said, "I know you are well informed. Stop teasing me and tell me what this rumor is that has caught your attention so much." Lu Kun said mysteriously that Su Ming seems to have pursued the legitimate daughter of the Dantai family while at the Starship Academy. According to the Dantai family's news, that legitimate daughter is set to marry the young master of the Zhao family in the business world. Therefore, the intention of that gentleman is very clear. If orders come down, we might really have to launch an assault here. Lu Kun pointed to a small dot on the star map and circled it. Lin Yuan said with a serious expression, "The likelihood of that happening is quite low, but I do hope such a possibility arises. After all, we won't bear the responsibility. Isn't that thrilling? To leave Kalen unnoticed and then head to the Zhao family's home planet for a surprise attack. Orbital airdrops and mecha landings will set a precedent for planetary offense and defense. It would be recorded in the annals of the Starship Academy, becoming a subject of study for generations of students." However, no matter how one looked at it, that Su Ming was no simple character. At this moment, the 2 squad leaders of the flight squad, 1 male and 1 female, also arrived at Lin Yuan's command center. Lin Yuan smiled and said, "It seems what I think comes true. I wonder if the people under you are skilled in covert infiltration flights within a planet requiring ultra-low altitude flying to evade planetary detection systems. The training outline has been drafted, you can follow it." Qian Yin took the training outline, glanced at it, and asked, "What about that captain?" Lin Yuan spread his hands and said, "I've only been here a few days. Besides leading people to intercept journalists, I've just been familiarizing myself with the ship's corridors. As for the landing forces, I can't go on without knowing which way the restroom doors on the Starship open." Qian Yin did not appreciate the humor of this brigade commander, stating, "The training outline clearly has issues. I need to report this directly to the captain." It was evident that this was not a training outline for dealing with the insect race. This was a training outline for dealing with human civilization itself, and it was crucial for planetary offense and defense. Seeing the flight squad leader leave with Qian Yin, Lu Kun smiled and said, "Now this is truly a big deal. I heard that Captain Qian also comes from a prestigious family. How did she end up being assigned here?" The reserve of the Starship Command is not a good place. Although there are many benefits, they also lose a lot. When not in wartime, their time will become increasingly long. Killing time has been a frequent activity for them these days. Lin Yuan stood up and said, "As one in a position, one must consider the matters at hand. Since this is a compliant training outline, it's time to get them moving. The Kalen garrison forces have complained to us numerous times these days. One cannot remain idle. Once they do, many troubles will arise." Lu Kun nodded and said, "But I do not wish to see such a scene. It would be disastrous." Lin Yuan shook his head and said, "The decision lies in the hands of that Su Ming. They are merely a mobile combat force. If the evidence is sufficient, then they will assault the Zhao family's home planet. That should not be a problem as those goods can hardly withstand scrutiny." Meanwhile, outside the atmosphere of Kalin's 600 Federal Kyanka-class combat mechs had separated from the transport ship. They executed an orbital airdrop onto this planet that had not seen war for many years. When the 600 mechs transformed into meteors and descended upon Kalin, the defense forces of Kalin finally remembered to inquire about the unit number of that mech force. "Please identify yourselves, or we will take measures. Please identify yourselves, or we will take measures. Please identify yourselves." The squad leader personally directing this airdrop, Nanfeng, smiled and said, "Having enjoyed peace for so long, the Kalin defense forces are no match for battle. If war comes, the insect race could take Kalin's capital in 3 hours." At this moment, a drill authorized by the command was taking place, but after this drill, who knows how many people will be dismissed and investigated. Within the bridge of the Shanha, Su Ming sat calmly in the captain's chair, gazing at the images appearing on the screen. However, his heart was bleeding. After purchasing the battleship and its accompanying equipment, his already meager savings were undoubtedly exacerbated. Now he also had to make a cross-light-year video call, which could truly take his life. On the screen, an elderly man with silver hair said, "I was thinking that if you really couldn't buy a battleship, I could lend you one, but since you've managed to buy it, let's forget it. But you mustn't do anything foolish. If you start a planetary offensive and defensive war within the Federation's territory, you might just end up becoming an interstellar pirate." Su Ming shrugged and said, "Master, you're overthinking this. I was very obedient back in the day. You're slandering me now. How could I be that kind of person?" Although some of the training outlines were indeed excessive and certain weapons were a bit overpurchased, isn't it reasonable for the future war against the insect race? Isn't that reasonable? On the screen, Qin Xianming said, "All right, just keep it in mind. Your battleship will be completed in 3 months, and the Starship Academy will open admissions again. You can go with Old Sun to pick up the new students at Luoyang Star. Isn't that the Academy's responsibility? Why has this hard work fallen on us as master and disciple? The Starship Academy uses graduates to pick up new students, but doesn't pay any fees. It's pure hard labor." Qin Xianming looked at Su Ming with disappointment and said, "Don't blame me for not warning you. Dan Tai Yunyan might be at Luoyang Star." Within the Kunping Star at the branch of the Starship Academy, Chen Xuanming, sitting in his office, was well aware of his disciple's thoughts. However, while his disciple is indeed not a match for Dan Tai Yunyan, he is well matched with his granddaughter. "I hope Su Ming won't cause any trouble when he goes there." Meanwhile, Su Ming aboard the Shanha calmly spoke, "When the time comes, there may be some chaos, so I hope to conduct a real drill with the garrison forces of Luoyang Star to simulate the arrival of war. The key points of planetary defense and the offensive and defensive operations of major cities will be uploaded by a Luo, and I hope the Academy can provide ample support. I am not good at finding people, but I excel at blockading planets. The drill application will be submitted through the normal channels for approval by the Academy leadership. Luoyang Star will surely agree, as it will allow the garrison forces to save face." On the screen, Qin Xianming smiled and said, "You haven't changed a bit, but that girl from the Dan Tai family really doesn't suit you. Isn't my granddaughter good enough? It's better not to mention this matter." Whenever it's brought up, Su Ming feels speechless. He considers Qin Xianming as his teacher. But who would have thought that Qin Xianming wanted to be his grandfather? Is that reasonable? Su Ming awkwardly smiled and said, "Master, this joke isn't funny, but there's something I hope you can help me investigate." "What is it?" Qin Xianming on the screen asked. Su Ming said, "Leisurely help me investigate the Zhao family's fleet that hasn't been registered with the Federation Starship Management and Evaluation Committee. I don't want to go out and be confronted directly. Indeed, the Federation has restricted the military power of those conglomerates and groups, but after thousands of years, most of them have representatives in the military or through marriage. At the Starship Academy, many sons-in-law have been found. These older families tend to be more traditional, and their family values are relatively good. However, in the past century, the Zhao family, which has made its fortune through selling fish products, has indeed taken a radical path. They not only bypassed the Starship Management and Evaluation Committee's registration, but also directly acquired second-hand starships for modification. Although their single ship's strength cannot compare to those old families' old groups, or old conglomerates, the Zhao family's convoy, which has rebranded itself and is engaging in interstellar piracy, is indeed quite disgusting. If they encounter each other, he wouldn't mind sending the Zhao family's convoy to meet the Buddha in the West." Qin Xianming smiled mysteriously and said, "Revenge should not be delayed. Very good. As expected of my disciple, sinking the Zhao family's convoy without registration counts as a military achievement. If we can engage in a battle against the new students, I believe the cadets will quickly regain their focus. The students of the Starship Academy are primarily trained to be starship captains. In the current era, battles between clusters of battleships only become live targets. A single ship is the main force. The firepower of a single interstellar battleship now surpasses that of hundreds of Federation starships from thousands of years ago. Su Ming nodded and said, Master, according to a Luo and Shan simulations, if the personnel equipped by the military can reach the expected combat power, then we will silently approach the Zhao family's home planet within 7 days. I don't think my old man has used the Federation's 3,050mm caliber antimatter main gun in this starry sky for a long time. As a student of the Starship Academy, he believes in the starship beneath his feet. He believes that caliber is justice and speed is truth. Coincidentally, the Zhao family lacks the strength to install interspace navigation interference devices within the range of their home star. At most, they can only install warp interference devices or anti-stellar leap devices near the main traffic routes and planetary gravity wells. Chen Xianming said solemnly, Don't worry, things won't reach that point. Just don't act recklessly. You are the captain, but to fire you need military authorization. He couldn't imagine the damage that would be caused if the 3,050mm caliber antimatter main gun were to fire. But he knew very well that this kid would definitely dare to fire. Su Ming looked at Chen Xianming and said blandly, Master, I'm just a student. How could I possibly obtain that kind of authorization? His teacher was right, but he never listened to his teacher's words. Being obedient is what a good child does, but good children always suffer grievances. As the captain of the Shanghai, he has the right to speak on certain matters. For example, landing on Zhao family's unmanned mining star without gravity stabilizers, or capturing some insect race corpses and placing them on Zhao family's resource star. Then he would ask the Federation Starship Command to speak on the insect race combat policy. According to the Federation Starship Command, Federation citizens have the obligation to assist Federation Starship captains in eliminating the insect race. Any dissenters could face immediate military control. Behind him is not just one person, but countless starship captains. He is a member of the Intergalactic Federation and the Starship Association. If the Zhao family follows the rules, then it will be according to the rules. If the Zhao family does not follow the rules, then he will let the Zhao family have a taste of their own medicine. A few days later, the personnel dispatched by the military have all taken their positions and started training on the ship. The numerous biorobots ordered from Star Industrial Group have also been set in place. Thus, the star battleship Shanghai has initially gained the capability for interstellar navigation. Of course, the installation and debugging of weaponry will still take at least 2 more months, given the situation at the Kalen Star shipyard now. 7. There isn't much inventory left relying solely on the Kunping Transport Group's warp cargo ships for deliveries. For this, Su Ming even had to expedite the process. One must say the allure of credit points is substantial. The transport fleet of Kunping Transport Group directly entered the hyperspace highway. Hundreds of engineers from the Clucker Group have also begun to install and debug the main cannon. The interior of Shanghai is spacious enough to accommodate over 100,000 people when fully loaded. However, this is a genuine combat vessel equipped with level 5 shields, multi-layered armor, and isolation chambers. Therefore, at any time, only supplies can be overburdened on the Shanghai. The soldiers from the 7th Special Operations Brigade who were withdrawn from the front lines also began to enjoy a period of tranquility. Suddenly, urgent alarms rang out across various main deck levels. This is not a drill, this is not a drill. Please, all ship members, take your battle positions. All senior officers, 7th Special Operations Brigade Commander Lin Yuan and Deputy Commander Nanfeng of the Mecha Brigade, Deputy Commander Qian Yin of the Flight Brigade, and Sun Ming, please gather in the operations meeting room. Once again, this is not a drill. Installation operations are temporarily halted. Security personnel on board, take your battle positions and set phase guns to stun mode. The indifferent voice of the main control AI of Shanghai startled Lin Yuan and the others who had finally managed to relax. As elite members of the Federation, they swiftly transitioned from peacetime to wartime status within just a few minutes. The few named individuals followed the navigation's guidance to the operations meeting room of the Shanghai. Su Ming, seated in the captain's chair, stood up and said, Gentlemen, we have just received notification that in 3 months we will head to Luoyang Star to escort the students of the Starship Academy to the Kunping Star branch of the Academy. After reaching Luoyang Star, we will need to conduct a confrontation drill with the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet. This is a drill for combat, not for show, so I urge everyone to convene an emergency operations meeting for authenticity. Qian Yin frowned and interrupted Su Ming. Captain, isn't it a bit too early to convene the operations meeting? The Mecha Brigade's Captain Nanfeng beside her looked helpless. The girl was still too young. Students of the Starship Academy place great emphasis on those old rules. Otherwise, the Starship Academy would not have become such a stubborn institution among the Federation's other similar academies. Looking at the curvaceous Qian Yin, Su Ming reproached, Deputy Qian, I know you are an elite of the Federation, having served on the Federation's Jinhua-class interstellar aircraft carrier before being transferred here. However, the protocols for an interstellar battleship differ somewhat from those of an interstellar aircraft carrier. On an interstellar battleship, one must wait until the captain has finished speaking before others can voice their opinions. This is not just protocol, it is tradition. An academy that cannot uphold tradition is nothing. Qianyan replied, I apologize, Captain, I misunderstood. However, I still wish to know from the mission briefing this appears to be a very simple escort and drill task. The task was clear and straightforward. This Captain Su seemed a bit too cautious. After inviting everyone to sit, Su Ming said, Aluo, expand the mission intelligence and send the operational details to the personal AIs of the main officers. This is not a simple drill. We need to blockade the 3 main routes to Luoyang Star. The operational objective is to blockade the main airports of Luoyang Star and conduct orbital airdrop raids on the major cities of Luoyang Star, ultimately allowing the defense forces of Luoyang Star to save face. Finding a person on a habitable planet is no easy task. Hence, making some noise to inform Dantai Yuyan that he has arrived will suffice. Of course, the primary task is still to escort the students of the Starship Academy. Lin Yuan, looking at the mission briefing in his hand, already understood this was likely Captain Su's rehearsal for the raid on the Zhao family's main star. Lin Yuan asked, We are too short-handed if we want to conduct a blockade. We must take the central cluster of Luoyang Star's capital. Otherwise, the massive automated defense systems will cause significant losses for us. He does not like drills but enjoys real exercises. Being able to raid the capital of a Federation planet is indeed a rare opportunity. Su Ming pointed to Luoyang Star on the screen and calmly said, Therefore, I need the Mecha Brigade to perform a rapid descent in outer space disguised as meteors directly infiltrating. The Shanghai will initiate signal jamming. We will conduct information lockdown on the Luoyang star system while the Flight Brigade engages in atmospheric operations. Ultra-low altitude infiltration and stealth operations, as the Federation's military readiness on various planets has significantly relaxed. Murphy's Law. The more the Federation does not wish to engage in war with the insectoids, the more likely there will be a conflict between humanity and the insectoids. It's just a matter of time. Qianyan asked, Aren't we going to give them any advance notice? After all, it is a common unwritten rule in the Federation for the parties involved in a drill to exchange information beforehand. However, it was clear from Captain Su's demeanor that he had no intention of exchanging information. Su Ming looked at the others and said, No need. I'm merely holding a position at the Starship Command, and moreover, the drill is just incidental. Our main task is still the escort. However, according to reliable sources, a pirate fleet, called the Gray Line Snake, may launch an attack against us. I hope everyone can be prepared for landing operations after the main cannon fires. He never fears war. The Shanghai is his greatest confidence. Nanfeng calmly stated, The Gray Line Snake pirate fleet possesses old-style interstellar cruisers and modified interstellar destroyers along with a considerable number of auxiliary ships, and may even have some outdated interstellar battleships. For instance, those ships that have been in the ship graveyard for hundreds of years and suddenly vanish. This is a true war machine. Su Ming said coldly, I don't know the reason, but since they dare to come, we will send them to meet Buddha. This mission is the maiden voyage of the Shanghai, and if possible, we can give the antimatter main cannon a try. The main cannon has been installed, and it is meant to be used not merely for show. Being merciful to the enemy is being cruel to oneself. Nanfeng's expression turned grave. This is clearly not a simple task. Using an antimatter main cannon against pirates is like using a cannon to swat a fly. Just the long-range star-grade torpedoes alone can send these foes straight to the underworld. It's a pity that very few dare to take on a genuine interstellar battleship. Lin Yuan smiled and said, I have no issues here. My brothers are already restless. This is a great opportunity for military merit. One can easily guess where the Gray Line Snake pirate fleet comes from. The Federation's laws may be good, but after centuries of changes, who knows what kind of hidden reserves those powers hold. This is also why Starship Commander trainees are so sought after. It can be compared to the ancient historical records of capturing Sansanlaw. It's just a pity that the situation of the Dantai family is very complex with various factions, and the Zhao family has also attached itself to that Lord Dutong. However, once Su Ming moves, no one will stand by the Zhao family's side. After all, no one from the Zhao family has qualified as a Starship trainee. As a guarantee of the Federation's combat power, no one dares to make a fuss about this. Nanfeng said, I have no issues here. We can deploy at any time. Qianyan stood up and said, The Flight Brigade has no issues. We will resolutely complete the drill task. Very well, the training outline has already been distributed, and the Shanghai has procured a batch of combat equipment. I hope you all can become familiar with it quickly. Our time waits for no one. Once the weaponry is installed, we will set sail immediately. This will be my first battle as well as the first appearance of the Shanghai in interstellar space. We cannot afford to make any blunders. In the 7th shipyard of Karun Star, the atmosphere is bustling with activity, making one wonder if Karun Star is on the verge of another rise. However, only the director of the 7th shipyard Wu Chuanfeng understands that once the Shanha is completed and delivered, the shipyard will face total decline due to the lack of orders. In the past month, numerous main guns and close defense systems have already been installed. The remaining 60,000 unmanned bombers and various weapons for landing forces are also being constructed at the 7th shipyard of current Star. Are they really going to manufacture landing equipment at such a prestigious shipyard? Wu Chunfeng looked at the distant dock and asked Wang, and who was calculating consumption beside him, what do you think about us making landing boats? The environment is tough. Oh, we can't let over 100,000 employees go hungry. Since the resignation of Lord Li Nanfeng, the military manufacturing industry has been in decline akin to a downward spiral. Of course, shipyards that specialize in building star yachts are thriving, but from his professional perspective, such starships are not suited for war. Once they hit the battlefield, even interstellar destroyers can sink them within a certain time frame. Wang put down the report in his hand and said, Director, the environment is bad, and there's nothing we can do. With the cleaning up of the Sanbu Guan Star region and the stabilization at the front with the insect race, the military has little reason to build ships anymore. Moreover, the active starships in the Federal Interstellar Fleet may also face decommissioning. The piercing of the Sanbu Guan Star region has greatly infuriated the military. Then those who have been cleaned up really were cleaned up amidst the fire of interstellar battleships. The Federal Interstellar Fleet never allows such individuals to swagger around as federal citizens. Even if their backing forces are strong, they cannot compare to the Interstellar Fleet headquarters, which is 70 million starship captains in a broad sense. Wu Chunfeng smiled and said, therefore, we need to leverage Lord Su Ming to make a name for our 7th shipyard using up all those long-stored goods. After all those detection devices were originally prepared for this warship, were they looted by interstellar pirates? Can I learn from this? Just as recorded in ancient history, massive granaries were completely burned down by suddenly appearing fire dragons. Wang smiled mysteriously and said, this is indeed the best way, as even the most advanced detection devices will have issues if stored for too long. Wu Chunfeng calmly looked at the bustling factory area and said, then let's do it. The revival of the 7th shipyard of Karun Star rests on this endeavor. In the past period, the Karun Star shipyard has remodeled the Shanha to the highest standards. One large ecological breeding area was transformed into 3 smaller ecological breeding areas. In a sense, Lord Su Ming is an advocate for single-ship policies. Inside the dock of the 7th shipyard, while inspecting in a small aircraft, Su Xian was accompanied by the chief engineer sent by the Klucler company, who said, I want to know the performance parameters of the interstellar torpedoes and missiles that you can provide for resale. I don't want to make erroneous judgments in future battles due to inaccurate data. In the Federation, the most lucrative businesses are genetic optimization, lifespan extension practices, and arms trading. Cultivation is not mysterious. It is merely the maximization of genetic technology utilization. The beauty of genetic technology development. The chief engineer of Klucler Shinyun smiled and said, I believe Lord Su Ming should understand that only outdated weapons will be sold in large quantities, and I can only remind you, due to your status as a 3-star citizen, we can transfer the technology for miniaturizing cold fusion warheads, but the miniaturized devices must be purchased from Klucler. Su Ming said with a hint of sarcasm, indeed, this is the consistent style of Klucler. However, I need to order electromagnetic cannons for planetary combat and individual combat weapons. Speaking of electromagnetic cannon-type weapons, I must mention the insect race. It can be said that the insect race born from subspace has changed the entire universe's weapons development with its power. These weapons are prepared for the insect race. They may not be as advanced as laser rifles. However, the old equipment that has undergone many war tests is still deadly. Shinyun smiled and said, as long as you can pay enough credit points, these are not problems. However, according to the requirements of the Federal Military Technology Defense and Control Committee, the weaponry available for purchase by citizens must be below the level of active starships. This is the Federal's greatest reliance. The starship weaponry owned by citizens cannot match the fleet starships under the command of the Starship headquarters. If a starship purchased by a citizen exceeds this limit, they will be summoned for questioning. These are indeed weapons of mass destruction. Su Ming shrugged and said, it doesn't matter. As an interstellar battleship, the Shanha itself is already powerful enough. It's just a pity that your escort ships are simply inadequate. The main guns of Klucler are excellent, but their small interstellar aircraft are simply subpar. Aside from being heavily armored, their speed and firepower fall short compared to similar models. Looking at the installed weaponry on various decks, Shun Yun couldn't help but feel a bit nostalgic for the Starship Academy. It truly is a place worth aspiring to, but unfortunately one must either have the strength to pass the exam or have a family member who has made significant contributions to the Federation. Otherwise, everything is in vain. The last captain of the Federation starship Infinite Cosmos, Su Ming, is indeed well deserved of his reputation. Although Su Ming only served as captain for 3 days, he won precious time for the Federation in the extermination of the insect race. The Federation starship Infinite Cosmos sank. 516 crew members perished. Oh, that depends on the Bollockton Company. They're the best at such tricks. Whether in wars with other civilizations or against the insect race, the main gun is the most deterrent weapon. Returning to his senses, Shun Yun continuously talked. Su Ming was speechless. Discussing escort ships with the makers of main guns is indeed a terrible topic. The small aircraft circled around before landing in the main gun zone of the weapon deck. Stepping off the aircraft, Su Ming gazed at the 2,080mm main gun, which reached a length of 300 m, filled with confidence. The main gun of a starship battleship is forever the most alluring existence. This main gun, manufactured by Klukler, can fire scorching laser streams and phase energy. Most importantly, it can adjust the energy input to alter the main gun's power. The adjustable main gun can even fire kinetic weapons using energy propulsion under certain conditions. Engineer Shun, I need to add some gunpowder-powered weapons with a firing rate of at least 100 rounds per minute. I don't care about credit points, so what I need is a 75mm caliber with the barrel coated in a thin layer of strong interaction material. Gunpowder-powered weapons can't deal with insects now. Quite the contrary, with the miniaturized cold fusion devices, a firing rate of 100 rounds per minute is sufficient to unleash a barrage from the Shanha. This is the optimal solution for dealing with interstellar aircraft harassment. Since we can't lock onto their positions, we might as well bombard that area. Although Shin Yun felt helpless, he still needed to meet the client's demands. Sure, these are not issues. If you place the order now, we'll ship it via a subspace transport vessel, and it will arrive the day after tomorrow. All installations can be completed by the end of this month. Captain Su Ming, congratulations on becoming a true captain. Although this Shan-class battleship is somewhat outdated, any starship that can be called an interstellar battleship is not a simple matter. That 3,050mm antimatter main gun is indeed quite intimidating. One shot can obliterate a star. Su Ming said, "Thank you for the compliment, but I hope Klukler's maintenance personnel can stay longer and sign a long-term contract for 30 years with standards rising by 30. Many factors determine a starship's combat capability, and the maintenance of its weaponry is one of the most critical." Shin Yun smiled mysteriously and said, "Don't worry, we have already arranged it. A total of 300 personnel will arrive with the last batch of goods." Oh, truly full of vigor. Very few can resist Klukler's sweet talk. This Lord Su Ming is indeed a major client. Su Ming looked at the sea of small figures on the dock and said, "Lord Shin Yun, as a VIP of Klukler, I should have the right to complete supplies at Klukler's branches scattered throughout the universe. I received a mission, so I need to resupply in the Luoyang star system, and I need you to grant the authorization. Since we've decided to launch a sudden attack, nothing will be more shocking than flying an interstellar battleship within the atmosphere." Coincidentally, he had purchased a lot of equipment from Klukler. Shin Yun smiled and said, "No problem. Shortly our company will send a dedicated liaison group to contact you." Lord Su Ming, do you have any special requirements for the liaison group? Many captains tend to have unique tastes. I prefer a classical style. The court ladies from ancient history are quite appealing. Being unconventional is always met with resistance, so he chose to go along with the crowd. Besides, within the current Federation, this is not considered a stylistic issue. As a starship captain, one must fight at the front lines against the insect race. Can't he enjoy himself? Moreover, looking at a group of graceful ladies is far more pleasant than watching a bunch. Before having his starship in the Starship Academy, he only saw old men. After acquiring his starship, he shouldn't have to look at a bunch of old men, otherwise wouldn't his starship have been a waste? Shin Yun laughed and said, "No problem. However, Lord Su Ming, you need to make sure to replenish appropriately. The people they send will depend on their own abilities. You must know that most of those people are women from influential merchant families hoping to one day marry a starship. Having one's own starship is akin to owning a house as recorded in ancient history. Of course, the real estate industry in the Federation has basically become infrastructure. Building a house is not difficult. Just pick any habitable planet under the Federation, and it can be constructed in 3 days. Every adult citizen of the Federation is forcibly allocated a building area of 1 hectare. Su Ming smiled lightly and said, "That's reasonable. However, I've always focused on cultivation, so I need to replenish." At this moment, a small aircraft landed. Tom Locke, the sales manager of the Bollockton Group, approached. "Lord Su Ming, the interstellar fighter jets and escort ships you ordered are all ready. You should really throw away those antiques from the 7th shipyard of Current Star. Ours are the latest models." This Lord Su Ming is quite a big client. Especially in the federal stock market, he possesses a keen intuition. Su Ming smiled and said, "Lord Locke, after all, the 7th shipyard of Current Star is the manufacturer of the Shanha. We must share some benefits, right? The small aircraft from the Bollockton Group is top-notch, but it's just too expensive. Originally, I wanted to buy some compatible small destroyers, but after careful calculations, I found my credit points were simply insufficient. So for now, I can only make do with the small destroyers from the 7th shipyard of Current Star. Tom Locke said that should be the case. However, Lord Su Ming, are you sure you don't want to purchase the latest models of starfighter jets? Those are currently the most advanced starfighter jets. The more sold, the higher the commission. If possible, he even wanted to buy some things that are not for sale. Su Ming smiled and said, Lord Locke, I will have some purchases later. We can connect via the quantum brain then. I have matters to attend to, excuse me. Then Su Ming boarded the small aircraft heading directly into the Shanha. He had no interest in listening to two old men arguing. On the weapon deck, Tom Locke and Shen Yun were eager to see a clash. Peers are the greatest rivals, and both sides believe that the other side is earning too much, depriving themselves of significant earnings, especially in the field of arms. Starfighters, escort ships, and star mechs are the future. Shen Yun, your main gun can't fire a shot for a year. What good is that? Locke, the things you sold to the White Elephant Zone sank 30,000 times last year. Not mentioning this was fine, but once it was brought up, Tom Locke almost jumped in anger. Damn the White Elephant Zone. Can't they at least maintain their weaponry? Star Calendar 3356-1106. For Su Ming, this is a day worth remembering. 10 years ago on this day, his parents sacrificed themselves on the front lines against the insect race. On this day, 10 years later, his flagship, the Mountain River, has completed its outfitting. The shipyard, covering nearly 130 square kilometers, seems unusually silent at this moment. Gone are the noisy technicians, and the clamor of engineering robots has dissipated. Even the usually bickering contractors have fallen silent. Over the past nearly 3 months, the 7th shipyard of Current Star has astonishingly completed the rapid outfitting of the last Mountain C-class interstellar battleship, with both quality and speed. With complete armament aside from the 4,060mm caliber main gun that could not be installed due to regulations, and the advanced military-grade detection devices that were also not installed. The Mountain C-class final vessel, the Mountain River, can be said to possess considerable combat power under the stars. At the very least, it has the initial capital to negotiate with various forces. Wu Chunfeng looked at the clean and orderly shipyard and said, Your Excellency, Su Ming, congratulations. The Mountain River interstellar battleship has completed its outfitting and is ready for the next phase of testing. Once the testing is completed, a full paint job will be applied to the Mountain River battleship. According to the regulations of the Federation Starship Command, once the paint job is filed, it cannot be changed in a short time. This is also the biggest difference between the starships belonging to the fleet under the Federation Starship Command and those purchased by individuals. However, some paint jobs are absolutely not allowed. Su Ming looked at the dark gray armor layer of the ship, thought for a moment, and said, Your Excellency, Wu Chuanfeng, I graduated from the Starship Academy. Although it may not compare to certain top-tier academies, I had already prepared the design for the paint job before my graduation. This factory director is quite interesting. Isn't he just trying to make some money off the paint job? Unfortunately, the painting skill of the 7th shipyard of Current Star can only be considered above average. Painting a starship is not that simple. It's not just a matter of slapping on a layer of paint. In the vastness of space, the outermost layer of paint serves as the starship's first line of defense. It is also a symbol of the starship's prestige. He does not want the paint layer to be tattered right after a long voyage. When it comes to starship painting, their Starship Academy is undoubtedly the best. Wu Chunfeng did not dwell on this matter and directly shifted the topic. Then, please, Your Excellency, Su Ming, begin the testing. We also need to do some filing. The technicians of the 7th shipyard of Current Star, along with the contractors, boarded a small aircraft. They reached the interior of the Mountain River, and the shipyard instantly became empty. Su Ming also boarded the small aircraft and arrived inside the Mountain River with Wu Chunfeng. After spending a large amount of credits, the comfort level of the Mountain River's interior has been maximized. Of course, this improvement is only in comparison to starships of the same level. When compared to interstellar cruise-type warships, it still falls short. After all, that thing is just a ruse used by many shipyards in the Federation to fool the nouveau riche. From the data on paper, that thing has exceeded what a proper interstellar warship should be. But in a real fight, that thing is not much different from paper. Usually in the territory of the Federation, it can protect a voyage, as the serious interstellar pirates in the Federation can only operate small interstellar destroyers at most. However, once outside the Federation's territory or targeted by someone specifically, it would be another story. On the bridge of the Mountain River, Su Ming has already taken his seat as captain, looking at the image on the main screen. At the fire control officer's position, Shen Yun from the Kluker temporarily took on the role of fire control officer. Qian Yin is sitting in the flight control officer's position and will soon conduct the maximum launch speed test of the onboard aircraft. As the commander-in-chief of staff of the Federation's 7th Special Operations Brigade, Lin Yuan and Lu Chuanming feel somewhat out of place on the bridge. They understand nothing and know nothing. They really don't know why Su Ming summoned them here. Besides Su Ming, an elegant woman dressed in retro attire said, Captain, we have received communication from the shipyard. The shipyard staff has left, and the shipyard has switched to automatic mode. Su Ming, smelling the faint fragrance beside his nose, calmly looked at the parameters on the main screen and said then released the shipyard docking system and activate the planetary anti-gravity field. This lady is one of the daily communication personnel sent by Kluker Chun Ruwei, a legitimate daughter of the Chun family, a side branch of the Federation's third pendant. He had already checked her information thoroughly through the Starship Academy's intranet. It must be said that Shen Yun is indeed a fool. The Chun family is no ordinary family, and this Chun Ruwei is even less ordinary. Based on his judgment, this person came to the mountain river to avoid a family-arranged marriage. As a legitimate daughter of the Chun family's side branch, it is quite easy for her to hide her identity. However, on the Starship Academy's intranet, Chun Ruowei's identity cannot be concealed at all. Back then, she applied to the Starship Academy's staff department, but unfortunately, she missed the admission by 0.1 points. Chun Ruowei looked at the helmsman and commanded, "Open the anti-gravity field, open the top layer of the shipyard, and operate the pulse engine at 10 power. During planetary flight, please pay close attention to height and other critical factors." At this moment, Su Ming has opened the ship-wide broadcast. "Brothers, I am Su Ming, the captain of the Mountain River Interstellar Battleship, and I am now starting the ship-wide broadcast. Today is star calendar 33561106, the beginning of the Mountain River's navigation test. I hope all brothers will cooperate fully. The communication is complete." At this moment, the top layer of the shipyard has slowly opened. The light of the star poured into the shipyard, draping the mountain river in a golden glow. This interstellar battleship, weighing over 10 billion tons, slowly ascended under the influence of 36 anti-gravity generators distributed across its hull. 3 minutes later, the mountain river flew out of the shipyard. A deep blue pulse jet appeared at the bottom of the mountain river. Thus, the mountain river began its comprehensive testing. Meanwhile, many dignitaries on Karen Star also noticed the ascent of the mountain river. Many elders even reminisced about the glorious days of the 7th shipyard of Karen Star. At that time, almost every 7 or 8 days a starship would ascend from the shipyard of the 7th shipyard of Karen Star. Inside the mountain river, things were even busier. The biological robots equipped in the engine room with the assistance of Allo began intensive testing of the antimatter reactor, warp core, cold fusion reactor, and pulse energy converter. The quality of the engine room directly determines the performance of a starship. The technicians of the 7th shipyard of Karen Star began to collect data and upload it to the Starship Command. They also installed the friend-or-foe identification system on the mountain river. According to the regulations of the Starship Command, within the Federation's territory, any starship that encounters another without a friend-or-foe identification system can be directly classified without warning, and the wreckage can be taken to claim battle achievements. Some second-generation individuals quickly accumulated battle achievements by purchasing warships, and then meanwhile, the mecha squad led by Nan Feng conducted external tests on the main armor deck of the ship. Karen Star. At an altitude of 30,000 meters, under the powerful thrust of the pulse engine, the Shanha has achieved a stable height. Although the deck below the Shanha is not equipped with many weapons, this pulse engine serves as the best weapon. When the anti-gravity field is not activated, the thrust length of the Shan's pulse engine can reach tens of thousands of meters. After all, for such a massive starship, overcoming a planet's gravity is not a simple task. However, very few starships dare to carry out ascent operations without activating their anti-gravity devices. Such an ascent could bring catastrophic disaster to that planet. This is also the reason why interstellar battleships are so formidable. In 2 words, massive tonnage. It is an extremely challenging endeavor to lift an interstellar battleship weighing over 100 billion tons using a pulse engine. Shanha altitude stabilizer operating normally. Stable height set at 30,000 meters. Inertial dampeners activated. Parameters for planetary interior flight have been included. Weapon systems are online. All energy output lines are functioning normally. Detection systems are normal. Friend-or-foe identification systems are operational. The mecha outside is in good condition and the mecha pilot's vital signs are stable. Shall we proceed with the trial run in a space environment? The main control room of the Shanha echoed with the melodious voice of the ship's AI Shanha. However, apart from Su Ming, all the personnel in the bridge had excited expressions. After all, it is a rare occasion for such a comprehensive inspection of an interstellar battleship. Su Ming looked at the data displayed on the split screen and said, "Shanha, prepare to enter space." Interstellar battleships. Ultimately, they need to be tested in outer space. Testing within a planet's atmosphere only indicates the stability of a starship. It is important to note that at the very beginning, the Federation's starships did not dare to land on planetary surfaces easily. They feared being captured by the planet's gravity system, rendering them unable to ascend again. Order received. Main acceleration engine engaged. Pulse engine shut down. From an outside perspective, the Shan's speed within the planet's atmosphere had already reached 300 times the speed of sound. This is the cruising speed of the starship within the planet's atmosphere, and the speed of the Shanha continued to gradually increase. Like a meteor soaring upwards, the gradually increasing speed caused the dark iron armor to emit a ghostly. In earlier times, the acceleration and deceleration of starships would overwhelm the crew members. However, since the application of dampeners, these issues have ceased to be a problem. The acceleration and deceleration of the starship relied entirely on these dampeners. Otherwise, a starship just exiting warp speed could easily kill all its crew members. Only after breaking free from the gravitational constraints of Karen Star did the speed of the Shanha finally begin to decrease gradually. The dark expanse of outer space was filled with both visible and invisible threats. Su Ming gazed at the impacts appearing on the main screen and commanded, "All hands to battle stations, prepare for the final test. This is the first time our ship will conduct warp navigation. All crew members, please enter cryo chambers and prepare biological samples for testing." With Su Ming's command, the Shanha was enveloped in a flurry of activity. Federation-style defense robots began patrolling various corridors. The bridge of the Shanha was also entirely wrapped in protective devices. As the core of a starship, the bridge was not located in the most conspicuous position. Instead, it was situated deep within the starship with multiple layers of armored protection, allowing the captain to deliver a final strike against the enemy even after all weapon systems were offline. The starship serves as the ultimate weapon. When a starship charges at full speed, very few can evade its on. Chun Ruowei looked at the serious Su Ming and said, "Captain, isn't it a bit early to conduct warp navigation? After all, there are many systems that have not yet been tested. Such actions are rather reckless." According to the technical guidelines issued by the Federation's Interstellar Command, Su Ming's actions were fundamentally problematic. Su Ming playfully remarked to the well-proportioned Chun Ruowei, "Miss Chun, while you are indeed outstanding, you are still far from qualified to be a starship captain. The Zerg and other enemies won't wait for us. As a member of the Starship Academy, from the moment I purchased the starship, I was bound to the Shanha in an unbreakable bond. If I could retire, that would be ideal. Otherwise, my child will still pilot this starship, gallivanting through the sea of..." The technical guidelines from the Starship Command are merely outdated regulations. A true captain never concerns themselves with trivial matters. After all, some system tests are merely adjustments made by the military to make money. According to the guidelines from the Starship Academy, the Shanha is undoubtedly in good condition and is a reliable starship. "Captain, the warp engines are ready and the antimatter reactor is operating at 15% power. All crew members are in secure positions. We can initiate warp navigation." The ethereal voice of Shanha resonated within the bridge, and at that moment, everyone fell into a state of solemnity. Su Ming stood up and looked at the image of the engine room on the main screen, commanding, "Shanha, authorize warp maneuvers. Warp level 2 coordinates set for the asteroid belt on the outskirts of the Karen Star system. Additionally, deactivate the shields and conduct impact resistance experiments, as well as closing weapon." "Captain Yin, please proceed to the hangar immediately after exiting warp to launch the interstellar fighters and clear the flight paths ahead." With a series of commands from Su Ming, the atmosphere within the bridge grew increasingly tense. The pulse engines equipped on the Shanha began to operate, and from an external view, it seemed as if an invisible bubble enveloped the Shanha. The space in front of the Shanha began to compress in a small area under the influence of the warp field. The space behind the Shanha, on the other hand, was continuously expanding and returning to its previous state. If the rear space is not restored, the surrounding spatial medium will undergo certain changes. This is also a common method used by interstellar warships to set traps. However, within the Federation's territory, the use of such methods to set traps is strictly prohibited. Furthermore, all interstellar destroyers are equipped with spatial detection devices. Only when dealing with the Zerg can this method yield unexpected results. The silhouette of the Shanha nearly vanished, leaving only a trace of light. This signifies that the Shanha has entered warp level 2 navigation. "Stop the warp drive. We have arrived at the outer asteroid belt of the Karen Star system. Activate the close defense system. The Starfighter Squadron is launching and the escort ships are deploying. Small destroyers are being deployed. The mech battalion has reached the outer security zone. Within the bridge of the Shanha, testing is proceeding in an orderly manner. Asteroids, each several kilometers in size, were shattered into countless pieces under the strikes of the Shan's close defense weapons. The Shan's mining barges also moved out at the right moment, collecting and recycling the debris from these asteroids. Although according to federal law, no starship is allowed to mine asteroids near habitable planets. But the Shanha is currently testing, so who can say anything? Su Ming looked at Chun Ruowei and said, "Advisor Chun, lower the alert level and play some music, preferably something upbeat." In the distant ancient times, even star system spacecraft had very limited personal space for their occupants. All space had to be reserved for fuel. Music, especially with an upbeat tempo, became a powerful weapon for psychological healing. This tradition has naturally carried on to the present day. "As you command, Captain." Chun Ruowei helplessly rubbed her forehead. This was very different from the captain she had encountered before, if not for avoiding marriage. Why would she listen to that fool Xinyan and come to the Shanha? As Chun Ruowei entered her commands, the next moment upbeat music resonated throughout the entire Shanha. Many crew members who enjoyed music nodded along to the rhythm. Outside the Shanha, the cleanup of the asteroid belt was also proceeding in an orderly manner. The starfighters used the most primitive gunpowder weapons, but they were very practical for blasting asteroids. The mining barges followed closely behind, which left Duke Wu Chunfeng of the Collins 7th shipyard somewhat helpless. Although Su Ming's actions skirted the edges of legality, no federal laws could touch this Duke Su Ming. After all, his father was merely the head of a shipyard. These major issues were best left to the planetary governors. Nanfeng, piloting a mech, watched as the asteroids were continuously shattered and shouted in the combat channel, "This is exhilarating. I didn't expect even the small destroyers to engage, but it's just a pity that the main cannon of the Shanha hasn't fired, which is quite disappointing." Although he was a mech pilot, he was still a man. Who doesn't dream of commanding a massive battleship? Unfortunately, he fell short by 200 points and couldn't get into the Starship Academy. He had to go to the Mech Academy, but unexpectedly he turned out to be quite talented. Qian Yin retorted in the combat channel, "Exhilarating. Nanfeng, can you be serious? This is the maiden test of the Shanha. If something goes wrong and the wrong things slip, and don't come crying to me." Sitting in a starfighter with a wingspan of 100 meters, Qian Yin was methodically sending commands and analyzing the current battlefield situation, because you never know when war or an accident will strike. All that can be done is to be cautious, more cautious. Bridge of the Shanha. Su Ming, holding a cup of Pepsi, which is the exclusive joy drink for Starship crew, said, "Advisor, Chun, would you like a cup? This is the latest joy drink from Pepsi today, which can effectively alleviate the fatigue caused by interstellar travel. It must be said, no matter how times change, the taste remains the same, though there's just a bit less carbon dioxide." He still prefers the version with a lot of carbon dioxide in the Pepsi joy drink. Chun Ruowei shook her head and said, "Captain, let's skip it. Don't you know that drinking too much Pepsi joy drink can make you gain weight?" Su Ming set down his cup, took out a small holographic device, and calmly said, "Chun Ruowei, the legitimate daughter of the Chun family's collateral branch, according to the news advisor, Chun is about to enter into a marriage alliance with the third son of the Ma family." Describing that third son as arrogant and unscrupulous is already a compliment. The Ma family, like the Zhao family, are both upstarts that have risen in the past 500 years. Their methods in action are quite similar. Chun Ruowei said with a serious expression, "I can leave." Saying this, she was about to leave the bridge. Su Ming stood up and grabbed Chun Ruowei's delicate hand, saying, "Advisor Chun, I'm just confirming your identity. There's no need to be so tense. From the moment you boarded the Shanha, would the Ma family still treat me nicely? What reason would someone like the Ma family need to deal with me? The law of the interstellar is survival of the fittest. But am I weak?" If given the opportunity, he wouldn't mind firing an antimatter main cannon at the Ma family's home planet. Meanwhile, the other crew members on the bridge were focused on their respective tasks. Whatever issues arose between the captain and the advisor were not matters for them, the subordinate parties, to concern themselves with. And Lin Yuan of the Federal 7th Special Operations Brigade remained unfazed. After all, what could the Ma family do? Could they dare to let those outdated, unregistered starships intercept the Shanha on the federal main routes? Even though he was a brigade leader of ground combat forces, he knew that sinking a star-class battleship would at least require the deployment of an interstellar fortress, such a massive weapon. But unfortunately, the interstellar fortresses of federal foreign trade move very slowly. Even so, these primitive interstellar fortresses are not something the Zhao and Ma families as upstarts could afford. Chun Ruowei said that third son of the Ma family is known for being a calamity. No woman wants to marry him. But the Chun family has already made up their minds to send her to the Ma family for their trade routes. Su Ming said calmly, "Advisor Chun, while you have your own difficulties, you have used me, so for the next 100 years you will serve on the Shanha without pay. I think the Ma family wouldn't want to offend the captain of the Starship Academy. Although there are many academies with Starship Command programs, the only one named after a starship is the Starship Academy." He can understand Chun Ruowei's predicament, so she must also understand his troubles. At the very least, she should work for him for 100 years, and they can discuss the matters beyond that when the time comes. Chun Ruowei nodded and said, "As you wish, Captain, but I hope you don't have any ill intentions. It's a common flaw of men to think with their lower bodies." Su Ming replied with a smile, "Advisor Chun, you're overthinking it. I already have a girlfriend, and compared to her you're not. This is the truth." Regardless of looks or demeanor, Chun Ruowei cannot compare to his girlfriend Dan Taiyun. After nearly half a month of testing, the Shanha has successfully completed the testing of over 3,000 projects. Furthermore, all documentation for the Shanha has been uploaded to the Federal Starship Command. As a result, the Shanha interstellar battleship now possesses the right of passage through all major trade routes of the Federation, as well as communication rights at various star gates and access to the Federation's hyperspace highways. At the 7th shipyard of Kalen Star, within the dock of the Shanha, the top layer of the dock has been removed, and even much of the side walls have been dismantled. It is evident that during the testing of the Shanha over the past half-month, the 7th shipyard of Kalin Star has undergone significant renovations to this dock. On the viewing platform, Wu Chunfeng gazed at the towering giant ship and couldn't help but exclaim, "Lord Su Ming, I am very grateful that you allowed us to complete the construction of this interstellar battleship, otherwise, it would have already been dismantled by now. Such an interstellar battleship should not be lying in a ship graveyard not yet completed." Looking at the bow of the Shanha the Champagne, standing several dozen meters high, Su Ming said, "But I should still thank Lord Li Nanfeng. If it weren't for him being ousted, I might have only been able to command an interstellar cruiser at most." The ceremony of launching a starship originates from ancient times during the Great Age of Exploration. Back then, the warships of human civilization still relied on wind power, using sailboats to navigate. Yet in just a few tens of thousands of years, humanity, having originated in the solar system, has already occupied a vast expanse of the Milky Way. At this moment, Chen Ruowei stepped onto the viewing platform and said, "Captain, everything is ready. It is time for you to break the champagne yourself." Su Ming nodded and took out his personal holographic computer, gently tapping on it. The champagne at the bow of the Shanha shattered, falling from a height of nearly 5,000 meters. Fortunately, the area around the Shanha had already been cleared of personnel. Otherwise, Su Ming's already insufficient credit points would have taken another hit. As the champagne at the bow of the Shanha shattered, the workers at the 7th shipyard of Kalin Star, who were watching the starship launching ceremony, erupted into cheers. Such an interstellar battleship was crafted by their hands. The first television station of Kalin also broadcasted the launching ceremony of the Shanha globally. After all, under the governance of the Federation, life, while somewhat bearable, lacks many interesting events. It has been over 30 years since an interstellar battleship was last launched on Kalin Star. Hundreds of high-pressure water pumps shot streams of water to a height of 6,000 meters. The Shanha, with its anti-gravity devices activated, slowly passed through the solemn water gate. The sides of the Shanha starship displayed the flags of the Federation and the military flag of the Starship Command. The heavy sound of flutes resonated both inside and outside the dock. In an instant, aside from the sound of water and the flutes of the Shanha, there were no other sounds. The flight squad led by Qian Yan performed a low-altitude flyby for the citizens of Kalin. The interstellar fighter jets with wingspans of over 100 meters broke the sound barrier within the planet, startling many. The mech squad led by Nanfeng passed through the water gate in a standard combat formation. The soldiers of the 7th Special Operations Brigade, led by Lin Yuan, stood fully armed on the armament deck of the Shanha. Wang An watched as the Shanha interstellar battleship, having completed its launching ceremony, slowly departed. The opening cannon had already been fired, and the 7th shipyard of Kalin would soon need to transform. Nothing is more important than the survival of the 7th shipyard of Kalin. The viewing platform erupted in thunderous applause, undoubtedly celebrating the launching ceremony of the Shanha interstellar battleship. Undoubtedly, it was a grand event. A launching ceremony for an interstellar battleship is now a rare sight on Kalin. Most of the time, interstellar battleships do not have the chance to hold launching ceremonies before they are hurriedly sent off to battlefields, either against the insectoid race or other civilizations. Starships do not perish, they only gradually wither. Su Ming looked at Chen Ruowei beside him and asked, "Has Shen Yun and that Tom Locke left as well?" Chen Ruowei, holding the tactical holographic computer, replied, "Yes, Captain. After the Shanha completed all its tests, Shen Yun and Tom Locke have already departed. The 1,300 maintenance personnel dispatched by the two groups have all boarded the ship. With a level 5 permission, important maintenance positions are supervised by security robots, while the second main control holographic computer, a Luo, oversees everything." "Very well, please ensure that the ammunition supply for the Shanha is replenished to 300. I have a bad premonition that we might run into some trouble on this trip. Do not worry about credit points, especially for unmanned bombers. Get as many as we can. No one knows when war will arrive, but undoubtedly once it comes, as cadets of the Starship Academy, we will be on the front lines." In a sense, the danger level of a starship captain is not very high. The casualty rate of ground troops is what is truly alarming. Often an entire brigade can be wiped out within 3 days of deployment. However, certain planets with precious resources cannot be subjected to deep orbital bombardment. Chen Ruowei frowned and said, "Captain, there are only 30 million credit points left in the account you gave me. This amount may be a bit insufficient." 30 million credit points may seem like a lot, but they cannot buy much in terms of military supplies. Su Ming also frowned and asked Advisor Chun, "I remember there should have been 3 billion credit points in this account. How come there is only this left? Oh heavens, why do credit points disappear so quickly?" Chen Ruowei replied with annoyance, "Captain, you wouldn't know the cost of living if you weren't in charge. Just the production lines for weapons used in ground combat have consumed a large number of credit points. Moreover, 2 medium-sized ecological parks that can accommodate 100,000 people for daily use have also contributed to the expenses. It's already a miracle to have 30 million left." If it weren't for your decision to start issuing salaries to the crew after a year, you would have already gone bankrupt by now. Su Ming smiled wryly and said, let's order what we need. We'll transfer the missing credit points to you shortly. Credit points really are spent quickly. Su Ming took out the anonymous star card, feeling a bit helpless. This was the credit points given to him by the old Taishan when he distanced himself from Dantai Yunyan. He truly wanted to throw it back at old Taishan's face at that time, but now it seemed that the star card given by old Taishan was indeed valuable. A full 100 billion credit points, truly worthy of the Dantai family, which has a 3,000-year legacy. 3 days after the launch ceremony of the Shanha, the most numerous items were the weapon production lines used by ground combat forces, including, but not limited to, landing tanks, combat aircraft, for internal planetary operations, various types of artillery, and laser cannons. Inside the bridge of the Shanha, compared to the personnel configuration of a few days ago, there were only a few people left on the bridge now. If it weren't for Chen Ruowei's concern about any mishaps, Lord Qianyin would probably not have stayed on the bridge. Su Ming looked at Chen Ruowei, who was dressed in a classical blue outfit and holding a can of soda, and said, Chief of Staff, Chen, am I really that frightening? I am not that kind of person. If something bad were to happen on the bridge of the Shanha, it would truly be social death in front of a Luo and the Shanha. Moreover, how can there be a case where a senior wife has yet to enter the door, while a concubine has already entered? I must say thanks to that highest official in the Federation's history who was imprisoned for life. Because of that official's push, men can have 3 wives and 4 concubines, and women can also have 3 husbands and 4 concubines. He is a relatively traditional person, as can be seen from his time at the Starship Academy. So the earlier parts are good. It would be even better if the later parts could be omitted. Chen Ruowei said coldly, Captain, one can know a person's face, but not their heart. Until I meet your girlfriend, I cannot let my guard down. From the women specially trained by the Kalukir, it's not hard to see that the captains of starships may appear to be gentlemen on the surface, but one cannot guarantee that they have not changed behind the scenes. Su Ming looked at the data on the main screen and said, all right, Chief of Staff Chen, I don't want to argue with you over these meaningless matters. We need to head to the Luoyang stellar system, set the course for it. All weapon systems to combat readiness, mech squad ready to engage at any time. Landing troops prepare for jump battle. Chief of Staff Chen, let's get going. I must say Chen Ruowei is a very reliable tool. A chief of staff without authority is nothing. Chen Ruowei skillfully set the course and conveyed Su Ming's orders with her authority as a chief of staff, although Su Ming could also relay these commands alone. However, as the captain of a starship, one must have someone to relay messages. After completing all this, Chen Ruowei said, Captain, everything is ready. The entrance to the hyperspace highway has been acquired. Please give the order. Su Ming finished the last sip of his soda and said, Shanha target Luoyang star advance at speed 7. With Su Ming's command, the Shanha docked in the high orbit of Kalin star began to accelerate. In 3 minutes, the Shanha accelerated to 30% of the speed of light. Then within 10 minutes, it reached sublight cruising speed, heading towards the entrance of the hyperspace highway. At this very moment, inside the Shanha, the announcement from a Luo echoed. This ship is about to enter the hyperspace highway. Mission target location Luoyang, star stellar system. Estimated arrival time 72 standard hours. All combat units should cease training to conserve energy and be ready to engage at any time. On the 17th deck training hall of the Shanha, Lin Yuan looked at the soldiers of the 7th Special Operations Brigade and said, Old buddy, get ready. In 72 standard hours, we will have a good time with our colleagues on Luoyang Star. As a unit that had engaged in numerous battles on the front lines, the 7th Special Operations Brigade had no fear of any war, let alone these drills. Lu Kun said, but we cannot let our guard down. Captain Su directly issued an A-level authorization order. You should know what that means. This means that during the drills with Luoyang Star, if unexpected situations arise, we can engage without warning. However, with the authorization order, the responsibility does not lie with us, and Captain Su has legitimate grounds in compliance with procedures. No one can find fault. Indeed, captains from the Starship Academy are all no pushovers. Haven't we arrived at Luoyang Star yet? Leaving aside the unregistered fleet of the Zhao family, another fleet that is still undergoing registration procedures has already been intercepted. The only ones who can intercept starship registration procedures are probably the old-timers in the Starship Academy. Moreover, with procedures and compliance, no one can say anything. Is there not a variation in the registration cycle? Short ones like the Shanha can complete registration as soon as the data is sent. Long ones like that small fleet of the Zhao family might never complete their registration. At this time, Nan Feng walked over and said this matter may not be as simple as it seems. It could cause a big mess. What's wrong, old Nan? Did you receive the authorization order too? Nan Feng said with a serious expression, it's not just the authorization order. The mech squad has been authorized to use all firepower. I have a feeling that we are not going for drills, but rather to be involved in a war. Lu Kun's wise eyes flickered with a hint of light. They may have jumped into a pit of fire. Now the matters regarding their captain have involved conflicts between the Starship Academy and certain entities. The Zhao family will not back down. Retreating would signify that the supreme officer of the Federation, Lord Du Tong, fears the Starship Academy. Captain Su will not retreat either. They've already boarded the ship, so how can they jump off? Lin Yuan calmly said, Old Lu, don't worry, so much things haven't deteriorated to that extent. Even if we become interstellar pirates with the configuration of the Shanha, who could do anything to us? If it comes to that, he might even make a name for himself in the history of the Federation. In the history of the Federation, there has never been someone piloting a star-class battleship as an interstellar pirate. Nan Feng smiled and said that's true, it would definitely be exciting and thrilling. Regardless, we must be fully prepared. To prevent unexpected situations, we need to get everything ready. It's time to distribute ammunition. The statement about distributing ammunition already indicates something. Nan Feng was somewhat confused, but Lin Yuan, as the military commander of the 7th Special Operations Brigade, was very clear about what it meant. Lin Yuan solemnly said we should go and submit a request to Captain Su. It's time to activate the cold fusion device. Before reaching the outskirts of the Luoyang stellar system, we must distribute the cold fusion individual missiles. I have never fought such a wealthy battle in my entire life. In the Luoyang star system, on the high orbit of the main star Luoyang star, 3 Zukla-class cruisers belonging to the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet slowly dock in orbit. The Zukla-class cruiser, measuring 3 kilometers in length, over 700 meters in width, and reaching a height of 500 meters, has a remarkably slender form. However, no one dares to underestimate the combat capability of the Zukla-class interstellar cruiser. As the oldest starship in service within the Federation, the Zukla-class cruiser is indeed aging like fine wine. The remaining 10 standard interstellar destroyers are stationed in low orbit, inside the flagship Cambridge of the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet. The fleet's military commander, Colonel Su Ming, looked at the task brief on his holographic computer with a helpless expression, turning to his chief of staff and saying, We've got trouble. This is the mission brief. Our task for this drill is to intercept an interstellar battleship. Moreover, the higher-ups did not specify the exact landing point of this battleship. In Su Ming's view, the higher-ups were completely clueless this time. The Zukla-class interstellar cruiser is indeed formidable, but that depends on who it faces. Against an interstellar battleship, the firepower of the Zukla-class is hardly more than a tickle. Whoever thought of such a dirty tactic must be an absolute fool. He had already been assigned to the defense fleet. Why would they come at him like this? Do they really think Feng doesn't have a temper? Since they planned to sound the alarm for the Federation's defense command, why start with him? The chief of staff, Ouyang Lei, asked, What if we can't stop it? What will we do then? Haha, can't stop it. Su Ming said helplessly. By that time, it will simply be the fall of Luoyang Star, and the capital of Luoyang Star will be breached. The planetary governor of Luoyang Star will become a prisoner of war, which is a tremendous humiliation. I order the entire fleet to navigate near the main route of Luoyang Star. Each destroyer will rely on the asteroid belt for staggered deployment and gradual interception. I will personally lead the flagship to launch a desperate charge against the interstellar battleship. With their strength, attempting to intercept an interstellar battleship is akin to chasing a dream. But with the interstellar battleship about to invade Luoyang Star, as the commander of the defense fleet, he must do something. Ouyang Lei saluted, saying, Commander, I will accompany the fleet and charge with you. Even if we are sunk, we must make the captain of that interstellar battleship realize that the Federation's Luoyang Star defense fleet still has war-worthy ships. A complete and utter defeat is needed to awaken the long-dormant defense fleet. Since no one is willing to take on such a task, the Luoyang Star defense fleet is willing to be the first to step forward. Su Ming looked at the countdown on the main screen of the battleship and said there are 3 standard hours left of prepare. Additionally, issue an emergency evacuation order in the name of the Federation's Luoyang Star Defense Fleet Command, informing the planetary governor that war has arrived. Since the higher-ups decided to conduct this drill in a serious manner, he, as the commander of the defense fleet, naturally has to help out. Inside the bridge, the other crew members dared not even breathe. Who would have thought that such a brutal drill would fall? Wasn't it usually the case that you launch an interstellar fighter while I launch an escort boat? Why is this time the real? The weapons officer said, Commander, the weapon systems are online and have been charged for the drill at 100% power. The shields are raised and all Closian weapons are activated. Su Ming held a bottle of soda, saying the entire fleet advance in a wedge formation centered around the flagship. Once an enemy interstellar battleship is detected, no need to ask for permission, I open fire immediately. In a sense, they still have some advantages as they are waiting for the enemy to come. But since the opponent is an interstellar battleship, they absolutely cannot let their guard down. If this were not a drill but a real war, they should already be on the edge of sinking. Because if it were a real war, they could not predict when the interstellar battleship would arrive in the Luoyang Star system. The Luoyang Star Defense Fleet is operating at full power. Even the escort boats are fully deployed and interstellar fighters are patrolling in outer space. On the surface of Luoyang Star, in the capital Luoyang Prefecture, suddenly the air raid sirens blared throughout Luoyang Prefecture, and some elderly people listened to the air raid sirens ringing in their ears. The thoughts of those elderly seemed to drift back 200 years. At that time, the war between the Federation and the insect race was still ongoing, and war drills were frequently conducted on Luoyang Star. But now Luoyang Star has not held a drill for several years. On the huge projection screen, the spokesperson of the first television station of Luoyang Star said, with a serious expression, according to information from the Luoyang Star System Defense Fleet Command, an unidentified interstellar battleship is about to enter the Luoyang Star System. Citizens, please orderly proceed to the underground shelters for refuge. This is not a drill. It is a high-level warning. Due to the oversight of the Luoyang Star System Defense Fleet, the situation has exceeded expectations. However, with only 30 million residents on Luoyang Star and the promotion of personal underground shelters, there were no instances of stampedes following the announcement. Luoyang Prefecture. In the largest villa area under Qingyun Mountain. In Cloudwater No. 1 Courtyard. Lady, there are enemies approaching the outskirts of Luoyang Star. Please evacuate as soon as possible. The Zhao family has a spaceship at Luoyang Star's first spaceport. An elderly woman looked at the peerless beauty sitting before the Guqin. The stunning beauty glanced at the elderly woman and said, Aunt Fong, how many credit points did the Zhao family give you? Is the credit from the Dantai family not enough? Do you know the consequences of doing this? Aunt Fong trembled as she replied, This is also the old master's intention. Please forget about that person. The Zhao family's young master is not inferior to that boy in any way. As a servant of the Dantai family, she naturally could not betray them, but since the young lady was nearing marriage to the Zhao family, they could hardly be considered outsiders. Dantai Yunyun coldly snorted, saying, Then Aunt Fong, you better not follow me in the future. Su Ming wouldn't like someone like you. No matter how loyal Aunt Fong had been in the past, once disloyalty occurred, it could never be forgotten. Moreover, the person she had her eyes on was certainly 1,000 times better than the Zhao family's waist. Aunt Fong said solemnly, But now Luoyang Star is no longer safe. How can you continue to stay in such a perilous place? Dantai Yunyun continued playing an ancient melody on the Guqin, saying, Aunt Fong, it's just a drill. I just wonder which member of the Federation it is. You do not have enough clearance, so naturally you cannot access this. Within the hyperspace highway, the Shanhua shield is fully activated, traveling at nearly 50 times the speed of light. The hyperspace highway is the most resource-efficient method of interstellar travel. If it were for battle navigation, hyperspace could reach speeds exceeding 1,000 times the speed of light. However, that is clearly not economical, as maintaining such high speeds puts a significant burden on the starship itself. Inside the bridge of the Shanhua, Su Ming gazed at the vibrant, indescribable colors of the hyperspace highway on the main screen and said, This is the home of the insectoids. We might encounter one at any moment. Fortunately, the hyperspace highways within the Federation's territory are frequently patrolled by interstellar fortresses, making them relatively safe. Yet this safety is only relative for starships capable of engaging in intensive combat. Civilian-grade starships generally prefer to use warp travel. After all, no one knows if a bug might suddenly appear while navigating the hyperspace highway. Chen Roe sipped her coffee thoughtfully, but even the Federation does not know which civilization actually established the hyperspace highways. The insectoids could never have constructed the hyperspace highways. It is through reverse engineering of these highways that the Federation developed its vast Stargate system. Compared to the perilous hyperspace highways, the Stargates may be slower, but at least they are safer. Qian Yin commented, Advisor Chen, Stargate tolls are charged based on the size of the ship. For merchants traveling in the universe, using the Stargate means that all their earned credits for the year go to the Federation. She had relatives engaged in small businesses, but unfortunately, they often had to take risks by using the hyperspace. If they could have an interstellar battleship for escort, they could save a considerable amount of money on their journey. However, without graduating from the Starship Academy's command department, there are no quotas for purchasing starships in a short period. Su Ming looked at the countdown on the main screen and said, Advisor Chun, while you may think that the Stargate quotas cost little in credits for small businesses, that represents their entire profit for a trip. Even in the Federation, some people call it life, while others can only call it survival. Chen Ruowei frowned and said, But shouldn't safety be more important? Su Ming sighed, Advisor Chen, I finally understand why the Starship Academy didn't admit you back then. Being a captain of a starship is inherently an unsafe occupation. Even an interstellar battleship, when facing a supernova explosion or being devoured by a black hole, can suffer severe damage, or even be lost if evasive maneuvers are not executed promptly. Safety. There is no such thing as safety in space travel. As for starship captains, their responsibility encompasses the safety of all crew members on board. Chen Ruowei fell silent. Qian Yin smiled helplessly. After all this, Advisor Chen appeared quite mature, but compared to Captain Su, who graduated from the Starship Academy and interned in the Federation's interstellar fleet, she still seemed quite young. Su Ming ignored Chen Ruowei's silence and said, Advisor Chen, it's time to enter the hyperspace highway. Inform all military commanders to convene here for a tactical meeting. I will be in command of this operation throughout. Understood, Captain. Chun Ruowei quickly recovered and systematically relayed the information. Not long after, Lin Yuan and Lu Kun from the 7th Special Operations Brigade, Nan Feng from the Mech Squad, and another flight squadron commander, Han Zhong, who Su Ming had only met once or twice, arrived at the bridge. Su Ming looked at everyone and spoke directly about the current situation. According to the information from the hyperspace sensors, the garrison fleet of the Luoyang star system is fully prepared. Therefore, my suggestion is to charge in single-handedly directly towards Luoyang star. Upon arriving in the high orbit of Luoyang star, Lord Nanfeng's mech troops will commence airdropping. After reaching the mid-orbit, Qianyan and Lord Yangzhong's flight squadron will deploy starfighter units. Upon reaching the low orbit, all soldiers of the 7th Special Operations Brigade will begin orbital drop. The targets are the 1st to 7th spaceports of Luoyang star to seize all starships for inspection, as well as the office building of the planetary governor in Luoyang Prefecture. If anyone has any objections, please voice them. If it were merely for a drill, he might have indulged in playing along with the garrison fleet of Luoyang star. However, this time he came to recruit talent and had no time to waste here. Nan Feng asked, Captain, what if someone uses lethal force against us? Such matters must be guarded against. The Federation has seen such incidents in its history. Su Ming coldly replied, if anyone dares to use lethal force, we are allowed to retaliate without restrictions, but be sure not to harm the innocent. On the way here, he had already received news that the Zhao family had starships stationed at Luoyang Star Spaceport. Although he didn't particularly like the person who sent him the message, at least it was concerning the suppression of the Zhao family. The two of them had rarely reached a consensus. The Zhao family would not withstand an investigation. If the Zhao family used force against the crew of the Shanhua, then the Shanhua would not be restricted in its use. I have no objections, Captain. Nan Feng replied. Lu Kun asked, Captain, do we need to capture the planetary governor of Luoyang Star? From the display of force by their captain, it was clear that the garrison fleet of Luoyang Star would be utterly defeated. If they did not capture the planetary governor, it would be utterly unreasonable. On the 6th of January 3357, at 1135 a.m. Standard Time, a ripple-like disturbance suddenly appeared in the starry sky near the exit of the hyperspace highway in the Luoyang stellar system. Some new recruits in the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet might not understand what this is. However, the seasoned veterans, drawing from their distant memories, recalled the significance of such a disturbance. This is clearly a sign that a starship is exiting the hyperspace highway, indicating that the enemy is about to arrive in the Luoyang stellar system. Commander Feng Ming of the Defense Fleet gazed at the image on the main screen and calmly issued orders, all ships, all warships, heed my command, lock onto the enemy interstellar battleships at the 3 possible locations. Prepare all main cannons for simultaneous fire 3 rapid shots and engage in warning shots beyond effective range to let them know we are here. In the perilous cosmos, such actions were akin to revealing one's identity. Yet when the gap in combat power between the enemy and oneself is so vast, daring to act this way speaks volumes about the unimaginable courage of the commander of the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet. Under Feng Ming's orders, the remaining 2 Zukla-class cruisers Luoyang 1 and Luoyang 2 began to maneuver. The 1,500 mm caliber main guns were already charging, indicated by the flickering lights. One can easily imagine the power of these main guns. 3 minutes later, the fluctuations in that section of the starry sky ceased. The members of the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet scarcely dared to breathe. In the combat channel, the agitated voice of the sensor operator rang out, escort formation, quickly evade. Escort formation, quickly evade. An enemy interstellar battleship is directly ahead. Captain of the escort formation questioned, there's nothing unusual in front of my formation. Neither the sensors nor the fire control radar detected any trace of the target. Damn it. Use optical detection. Use optical detection. The interstellar battleship is only 7,000 kilometers away. Given the current speed of the ship, you will be annihilated within 3 minutes. An old observer who had the fortune of participating in the war against the Zerg chose not to use flashy observation instruments. Comparing star maps along with optical detection and the most basic deep space detection devices was sufficient to uncover many anomalies. Switch to optical observation. The captain of the escort formation, without much hesitation, promptly switched to optical observation mode. However, this was not the main concern. He had seen interstellar battleships before, but never at such close range. From the observation data, the height of the interstellar battleship was nearly 4,600 meters, its width reached 5,600 meters, and its length exceeded 12,900 meters. Even placing their flagship next to the enemy's interstellar battleship would make it look like a small dinghy. Everyone pay attention, immediately withdraw from the lane to clear the view for the rear fleet and upload attack coordinates. Received. Amid the somewhat disjointed coordination of the entire Luoyang Star Defense Fleet 3 minutes after the Shanha entered hyperspace, the 3 Zukla-class interstellar cruisers of the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet commenced their first round of bombardment. Though it was a training exercise, the data from both sides loaded with training software would be analyzed and uploaded to the Starship Command. On the bridge of the Luoyang Chief of Staff Ouyang, Lei remarked, "Commander, there's no need to worry. Our first round of bombardment is quite accurate. Perhaps the enemy's interstellar battleship hasn't even noticed us. They are conducting operations on home turf, which gives them a significant advantage. Coupled with some stealth measures, it's not unreasonable that they remain undetected." However, Feng Ming's expression was unusually grave. "The enemy has already detected us in hyperspace. Our communications may now be suppressed." No sooner had he spoken than the main screen displayed the blood-red words indicating that the communication had been lost. Ouyang Lei was somewhat at a loss. After all, they were the ones in a position of advantage. Feng Ming stood and said dejectedly, "Our ships are outdated, and our soldiers are inexperienced. They can hardly withstand a battle." Ouyang dispatched interstellar fighters back to Luoyang and informed the planetary governor to prepare for capture. "Now I must go to the front lines." The front line of the starship is the enemy's main control room located outside the ship. It is generally used to confuse the enemy or for command operations in situations of significant advantage. Of course, there's also the scenario where in dire disadvantage the captain goes to the control room to boost morale. "If I am to sink in battle, Ouyang, you will succeed me as commander." Without waiting for Ouyang to respond, Feng Ming despondently exited the bridge. Ouyang Lei took his seat in command and said, "Proceed with sustained strikes as per the planned strategy. Continuous attacks. Do not stop and charge towards the enemy ship." The training enemy interstellar battleship did not fire in hyperspace, which had already given them face. How much face the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet could regain depended on their own efforts. When relying on mountains, they may collapse, and when depending on others, they may run away. Ultimately, one can only rely on oneself. Shanha inside the bridge. Su Ming sat in the captain's command chair watching the first round of simultaneous fire from the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet effortlessly blocked by the shields of the Shanha on the main screen. "Warning shots beyond effective range. This signals that we should not enter." Su Ming set aside the bottle of Pepsi he was holding and ordered Shanha third battle speed secondary guns free to fire main guns for deterrent fire. In the age of interstellar warfare, every increase of 50 millimeters in the caliber of the main gun represents a difference in quality and quantity. In a real war, the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet would have already been completely sunk. He had not employed other means in hyperspace, yet had already given the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet enough face. Of course, if one's own strength is lacking, no amount of face matters. Shanha understood, Captain. Following which explosive music resonated throughout the bridge, and Chun Ruowei felt quite helpless listening to it. Is this even a proper captain? But having boarded the ship, could she possibly disembark? Increase speed on the ship. The main thrust pulse engines accelerated to third battle speed, charging towards the main formation of the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet at 15% of the speed of light. Although the commander of the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet was well prepared, he inevitably made some textbook mistakes. A starship that had almost come to a stop would find it very difficult to catch up with an interstellar battleship moving at full speed. This required a significant amount of time, and that time frame was sufficient for Su Ming and the Shanha to complete all their tasks. In the outer region of the Luoyang Star System, in the command room of the flagship Luoyang of the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet, Feng Ming looked at the interstellar battleship, swiftly crossing the interception line at the third combat speed, feeling utterly despondent. What happened to the promised drill? Why is it so unprincipled in martial ethics? Can't they spread out and have a fair fight? I command the entire fleet turn towards the enemy, advance at second combat speed, and intercept alongside the destroyer fleet. The actions of the enemy's interstellar battleship have already exceeded their expectations prior to the drill. Now all they could do was to catch up with the interstellar battleship moving at third combat speed, or else the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet would lose face this time. As Feng Ming's order was conveyed, 3 Zukla-class destroyers of the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet quickly turned and closely pursued the Shanha. The main cannons fired continuously, yet the main cannons of the Zukla-class interstellar cruisers were far too weak against the shield of the Shanha. The drill software determined that the effective power of the shield had not even decreased by 0.1. Shanha. Inside the bridge, Su Ming looked at the data displayed on the main screen and said, "The commander of the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet is quite competent. It's a pity we don't have time to play with them. Fight as if it is real, not just for show. Shin, take your position at fire control and take down the 2 Zukla-class cruisers opposite us, leaving the flagship of the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet. Even if this is just a trivial drill, we must treat it as a real battle. Otherwise, if the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet is sent to the front lines to fight against the insect race, they will face total annihilation in their first battle." As for Feng Ming of the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet, he may be clever, but once on the battlefield his ability is Even though the interstellar war between the Federation and the insect race has eased, small-scale skirmishes still occur daily at the front lines. Compared to large-scale battles, small-scale skirmishes, though minor, are equally tragic. In fact, in terms of intensity and severity, they often exceed expectations. Chen Ruowei glanced at Su Ming, then took her place at fire control, starting to lock coordinates and prepare for the main cannon launch with the Shan's cooperation. After a moment, the 15 quintuple-barreled 2,850 main cannons on the Shanha began to fire. The scorching beams were instantly launched 7,000 kilometers away. In a drill, only pure energy can be used for targeting. In real battlefield conditions, other materials will also be added. The true power of the Starship's main cannons lies in the combination of multiple materials. The attack range of starships is at least 70,000 kilometers and can extend to 700,000 kilometers. If interstellar electromagnetic cannons are used for long-range strikes, they can hit targets several light years away. However, that requires a long acceleration time, and the use of warp torpedoes can vary the attack range. The main cannons are the primary weapons for combat at a distance of 500,000 kilometers. 7,000 kilometers can be reached in the blink of an eye. Command room of the flagship Luoyang of the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet. A hurried voice from the main control computer announced, "The Luoyang Star Defense Fleet Luoyang 1 has sunk. Luoyang 2 has sunk. The Starship Command and the Drill Command have determined that Luoyang 1 and Luoyang 2 are out of the drill." Su Ming turned his cap backward and said, "Luoyang first combat speed, full speed ahead. We must intercept the enemy battleship before it reaches Luoyang Star." In fact, at this stage of the drill, he could have withdrawn from the battle. However, for the dignity of the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet as a commander, he could not show cowardice. The tactical quality of the defense fleet may be lacking, but they are never afraid of battle. As the Luoyang entered first combat speed, the speed of the Luoyang and Shanha began to close in. 50 seconds later, the flagship Luoyang of the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet finally caught up with the Shanha. However, compared to the massive body of the Shanha, the Luoyang, an interstellar cruiser, appeared quite petite. Inside the bridge of the Shanha, Acting Fire Control Officer Chen Ruowei looked at the split-screen light signals on the main screen and said, "Captain, the flagship Luoyang of the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet is signaling us. Our ship has raised the Z flag requesting a decisive battle." On the main screen of the bridge, the image of the Luoyang appeared with the symbol of the Z flag now visible on the port side. In ancient naval confrontations, the Z flag often represented the beginning of a decisive battle. The greatest respect for the enemy is to sink them. Su Ming looked at the Z flag, seemingly recalling certain things he had heard in a previous life. "Chen, our ship raises the Z flag. Follow my orders, all ship main cannons prepare for a simultaneous volley." He gave the commander of the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet, Su Ming, the utmost respect by sinking him with a simultaneous strike from an interstellar battleship. The main cannons of the Shanha began to turn, and then a vast array of beams accurately struck the flagship Luoyang of the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet at a distance of 1,000 kilometers. Inside the main control room on the top deck of the Luoyang, Su Ming sighed with relief, lit a cigar, and began to smoke. The swirling smoke revealed that he was smiling. His task was complete, the rest depended on the ground forces. Meanwhile, the planetary governor received the news. He immediately summoned the military commanders of the Luoyang Star Defense Regiment. Inside the governor's mansion on Luoyang Star, the planetary governor Gongsun Sun, who learned that it was just a drill, looked at the plump commander of the Luoyang Star Defense Regiment. Gongsun Sun said, "According to the return messages, this is a drill, and there was an error in the information transmitted by the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet. But Lord Wu Eriang, do your subordinates have the capability to defend the capital Luoyang Prefecture? Even if this is just a drill, he absolutely cannot be captured. As a planetary governor, to enter the Federation Council and become a star region representative, one's resume must be flawless. However, to be captured in such a large-scale drill would be a tremendous disgrace on his record. Damn the Starship Command, how could they not notify us beforehand about such a large operation?" Wu Eriang, who rose from the front lines and fought for decades to achieve the rank of commander of the Luoyang Star Defense Regiment, nervously said, "Governor, if you don't want to be captured, you should leave quickly, otherwise you won't be able to escape later. If the enemy cannot be stopped by the fleet, relying on ground forces to intercept is nothing but a fantasy. If it were possible to stop them, the Mobile Force Command would have long since outmaneuvered the Starship Command. Unfortunately, the Starship Command is still high and mighty, while the Mobile Force Command seems more like a subordinate to the Starship Command." Gongsun Sun questioned, "Then what about you, Commander Wu? Do you have any combat plans?" Wu Eriang calmly drew on his cigar and smiled. "At this point, what combat plans can there be? We can only fight to the death." Then Wu Eriang left with his aide. Inside the governor's mansion, a loud roar ensued. In the high orbit of Luoyang Star, a battalion of 600 mechs boarded landing mechs and began their descent from the high orbit of Luoyang Star. The signal jamming device on the Shanha was also operating at full power, and within just a few minutes, it had blocked Luoyang Star's communication capabilities. In an instant, Luoyang Star returned to an ancient era, a world before Marconi. For the citizens of the Federation, losing communication is truly losing everything. As the green light in the mech launch bay on the left side of the battleship lit up, 600 mechs were ejected in just 3 minutes. Even if Luoyang Star, with its communications jammed, noticed the mech forces of the Shanha descending from orbit, it could not relay the message in time. Even if they sent interstellar fighters, it would take time to reach the airfield and take off. In this interim, it was enough time for the mech forces led by Nanfeng to reach the capital of Luoyang Star and capture the highest governor alive. Inside the bridge of the Shanha, Su Ming looked at the rapidly descending mech forces displayed on the split screen and commanded, "Chun, let's go to mid-orbit and send a message to Captain Qian to prepare quickly for the launch of interstellar fighters. In the planetary atmosphere, be mindful of stealth." This drill from the moment he submitted the application involved more than just him and Luoyang Star. Everyone knows exactly who is playing the game behind the scenes. Fortunately, in this grand game of power, he is merely a knife. A knife to awaken the defense fleet, which has a larger number of personnel than starships, equipped with enough biological robots. The defense fleet is capable of rapid expansion in a short time. He seems to smell the smoke of war. Chen Ruowei nodded and said, "Understood, Captain." The Shanha is descending to mid-orbit over Luoyang Star and has notified Captain Qian. From the outside, the bow of the Shanha tilted downwards at least 30 degrees. The pulse engines had begun to operate, and the scorching pulse jets shot towards the enemy several kilometers away. In the orbit of Luoyang Star, hundreds of interstellar fighter jets from the flying squadron along with tens of thousands of unmanned interstellar fighter jets belonging to the squadron were launched. The Shanha arrived at the low orbit above Luoyang Star. Through optical detection methods, information and images were relayed back to Su Ming and Chen Ruowei, who were on the bridge of the Shanha. The biorobot assisting in navigation could also clearly see the detailed images of Luoyang Star's surface. At that moment, Lin Yuan, who was preparing for orbital descent, connected to the bridge's communication. Lin Yuan on the main screen said, "Captain, you should establish a mission code. This is a tradition for mobile forces. Normally, the mission code is set by the Starship captain. This is unavoidable. After all, mobile forces often find themselves deep in enemy territory. Without a starship to rescue them, the mobile forces would be doomed." Sitting in the captain's seat, sipping a Pepsi, Su Ming looked at the map of Luoyang Star on the main screen and said, "My fault. I hereby declare that this mission code is to penetrate Luoyang Prefecture and capture the governor alive." On the main screen, a mysterious smile appeared on Lin Yuan's face, and he repeated the code: penetrate Luoyang Prefecture and capture the governor alive. Lin Yuan then disconnected the line and began to wait for the optimal descent trajectory. Compared to the orbital space of interstellar mechs and fighter jets, the orbital descent of the mobile forces was undoubtedly much more dangerous. A slight miscalculation in the descent angle could lead to a deviation of hundreds of kilometers upon reach. On the bridge of the Shanha, Su Ming was fully focused, not letting his previous casualness affect him. Even though he had lived 2 lives, he had never personally commanded such a grand operation. To say he was not excited would be a lie. However, as the captain of a starship, he could not let the other crew members see his excitement. He had to remain captain. Based on optical observations and combat radar, there are signs of surface combat aircraft taking off on Luoyang Star. The biorobot reported. Su Ming looked at the synchronized image on the main screen and ordered sync the data link to the flying squadron, instruct them to eliminate those fighter jets and ensure a clear path for the 7th Special Operations Brigade's orbital descent. Undoubtedly, the ground forces are crucial at any time. In ancient times, even when wars were nearly unrelated to ground forces, various countries still maintained a significant number of ground troops. Let alone in the era of the Federation, mobile forces remain an essential military power for maintaining peace across various star regions. Shan Yi responded, "Understood, Captain." The data link is being sent and combat orders are being updated synchronously. All remaining commands regarding the Shanha are being sent by Shanha until Alo completes the update. The firepower of the Shanha is far from fully operational. Chen Ruowei asked, "Captain, I still find it hard to understand. Why must we capture the governor of Luoyang Star as a prisoner? I don't see the reason. By this time, the Shanha has already achieved a great victory in this exercise. There is no need to unnecessarily offend a planetary governor." Su Ming thought of that detestable old tyrant and said, "There are many reasons if we want to capture him. Even if he is a Star Region counselor or a student from the Starship Academy, there have been prisoners taken during exercises before. This is nothing out of the ordinary. As a captain from the Starship Academy, he must command a large starship, and the main cannon must be a massive cannon. A big ship with a giant cannon is a man's romance. This is the Starship Academy, a truth earned through countless bloody lessons over the years. However, many are unwilling to believe it for various reasons. Still developing on the side of interstellar cruisers, some interstellar cruisers have long surpassed the size of interstellar battleships. Yet in terms of tonnage, they cannot compare with battleships. As for how much tonnage has been reached, it is likely due to kickbacks. In the Federation, this has almost formed an industrial chain. Building one battleship allows for the construction of 2 cruisers while receiving substantial kickbacks. Moreover, due to the policies propagated by Lord Du in recent decades, the construction of ships in the Federation has gone awry, but one cannot meddle in politics without being in the position. As for Su Ming, he would only complain a few times on the interstellar internet. Chun Ruowei fell silent, realizing that the students from the Starship Academy were indeed as reckless as rumor. If it were a captain from the Star Sea University, they would likely have already gone to apologize to the interstellar governor of Luoyang Star. The bottom hatch of the Shanha slowly opened. One by one landing crafts measuring 30 meters in length, 6 meters in width, and 4 meters in height emerged. Upon seeing the hatch open, the control screens of the landing crafts immediately pressed the delivery button. Along the electromagnetic slide rails, landing crafts specifically designed for orbital descent were directly released into low orbit. Within just 4 to 5 minutes, the 4 hatches for orbital descent on the Shanha had deployed the entire 7th Special Operations Brigade, nearly 7,000 personnel. After gliding for a while, the thrusters at the rear of nearly 200 landing crafts ignited, heading towards Luoyang Prefecture, the capital of Luoyang Star. Lin Yuan, also seated in the heavily vibrating landing craft, opened the combat channel. He shouted in the combat channel, by order of the captain, the mission code this time is to penetrate Luoyang Prefecture and capture the governor alive. Penetrate Luoyang Prefecture and capture the governor alive. Penetrate Luoyang Prefecture and capture the governor alive. Penetrate Luoyang Prefecture. The combat channel was instantly drowned out by the chaotic shouts of the mission code. Qian Yin and Nan Feng, who were in the same channel as the 7th Special Operations Brigade, felt quite helpless upon hearing the slogan. However, after the helplessness, Nan Feng felt an overwhelming thrill. As a soldier of the Federation, to capture an interstellar governor on the territory of the Federation under legitimate reasons was exhilarating. In the capital of Luoyang Star, Luoyang State, the shrill sound of the air raid alarm echoed incessantly. Even the first television station of Luoyang Star had promptly issued a notification that this was merely a drill. However, as a citizen of the Federation, no one is a fool who such massive land tanks have rolled out. With such enormous artillery pointed at us, you expect us to believe this is just a drill. Having never tasted snow fish meat, have you ever seen a snow fish run on television? Clearly they intended to use them as cannon fodder, and with the appearance of the planetary governor's convoy, this unsettling emotion reached its peak. So much so that after finally making it out of the city, the interstellar governor was blocked from proceeding by angry citizens. Faced with these citizens adorned with rows of medals, even the interstellar governor had to retreat. Meanwhile, in the northern district of Luoyang State, at the admissions office of the Starship Academy, Sun Daqiang, responsible for this recruitment, looked at the information sent by Director Chun Xianming on his personal hologram and said, "Damn it, they are all fools conducting a tactical airdrop. While cloaked, they must be trying to capture the interstellar governor as well." As a teacher at the Starship Academy, Sun Daqiang believed he had personally participated in numerous fleet drills of the Federation. Even in planetary offensive and defensive operations, there had been dozens of instances, but in every case, both sides had tested each other multiple times. They had given each other enough face, proving that your victory was not easy and your loss had other reasons before it truly began. But evidently Chun Zuanming's disciple had no intention of following the script. Accompanying Sun Daqiang, Shun Yin anxiously asked, "Teacher Sun, aren't you worried? I saw on the Wanda forum that this could very likely be a premeditated ambush by the Zerg. Should we relocate these over 3,000 new students?" For Shun Yin, who had just gained favor to enter the Starship Academy, encountering such a major event on her first recruitment outing was overwhelming. "Yes, Teacher Sun Shun is right, we really should relocate." The security deputy director of the Starship Academy, responsible for the safety of the new students, also expressed concern. After all, among these new students, apart from a few top scholars, most were the true descendants of the Federation's heroes. Most of their parents had died in battle against the Zerg. Sun Daqiang said, "Go and tell the students those who want to stay can stay, those who want to relocate can come with you." "But Teacher Sun, that doesn't comply with the regulations," Shun Yin retorted. Sun Daqiang smiled and said, "I am the person in charge of this recruitment. If something goes wrong, I will take the blame. Now go to your job. Being involved in the capture of a planetary governor is a tremendous honor. It all depends on whether these new students can handle it." Inside the bridge of the ship Shanha, Su Ming looked at the Shanha, which was gradually nearing the atmosphere, and turned to Chun Ruowei, who was savoring her coffee, saying, "Advisor, Chun, the situation is set. It's time to capture that planetary governor who wants to escape. Come with me. To Hangar 3, let's first pick up the team, and then we'll discuss. Shanha, after I leave, you take charge of the battleship operations. If there are any issues, we can contact each other at any time." "Understood, Captain," Shanha replied. Chun Ruowei stood up and said, "I am truly honored to participate in the capture of a planetary governor." Following the ship's internal navigation instructions, Su Ming and Chun Roe boarded a small interstellar destroyer measuring 500 meters long, 180 meters wide, and around 75 meters high after a brief 10-minute wait. Such small interstellar destroyers are primarily used for medium to low-intensity planetary warfare. Generally speaking, these are the medium-sized ships that mobile units can call upon during battles against the Zerg. They possess 50% of light speed, do not have warp travel capabilities, and do not engage in subspace travel. Purely star-class battleships intended for supporting ships. Sitting in the cramped bridge of the small destroyer, Su Ming skillfully operated the controls and swiftly opened the hangar doors. After warming up the engines, the small destroyer quickly separated from the Shanha with the help of electromagnetic propulsion. As the small destroyer ignited its main thrusters, a blazing jet shot out for several thousand meters. The small destroyer plunged into the atmosphere of Luoyang Star, heading towards the admissions office of the Starship Academy in the northern district of Luoyang State. At that moment, in the admissions office of the Starship Academy located in the northern district of Luoyang State, even without optical observation, one could see a large object descending towards their position with the naked eye. Having initially left, Shun Yen, who was still contemplating persuading Sun Daqiang, was now utterly alarmed. The Zerg are attacking, and they claim there is nothing to worry about. "Teacher Sun, we must relocate quickly. If we don't, we might get crushed." Yet Sun Daqiang remained calm, standing on the high platform with no sign of panic. At that moment, he was thoroughly enjoying the adoring gazes of these new students, unperturbed even as disaster loomed before him. However, as the object grew larger, Sun Daqiang began to lose his composure. "Why isn't it slowing down? It's about to crash." Finally, when it was 3 kilometers from the surface, the small destroyer completed its deceleration. It then slowly landed on the ground, at which point Shun Yen finally breathed a sigh of relief. She gently patted her racing heart. Su Ming stepped out of the hatch and shouted to the distance, "Old Sun, I'm here to pick you up. Hurry up, we still need to catch." Bringing these new students from the Starship Academy to experience what it means to be part of CERT is a great thing. At the very least, it teaches them how to apprehend individuals during drills like this in the future. Old Sun looked at Shun Yen, who was sweating profusely beside him, and said, "I told you there's no problem, you all didn't believe me. This is merely a joint drill between Starship Academy graduates and the Luoyang Star Garrison Fleet, but the stakes are just a bit higher." Looking at the 300 new students remaining there, Old Sun said, "You little brats, your senior brother is giving you a chance to catch a planetary governor, and you all must get on the ship." The cargo doors of the small destroyer opened directly, and under Old Sun's guidance, over 300 people boarded the ship within 3 minutes. The small destroyer then took off once again, heading straight for the planetary governor. The new students were even more excited, having participated in such a significant event right after starting school. Is there anything more exhilarating than capturing a planetary governor yourself? This is the most thrilling thing, isn't it? In the past half hour, the 1st to 7th spaceports of Luoyang Star have all fallen. The defensive fleet of Luoyang Star has been sunk in battle, and the exercise has been called off. The ground forces of Luoyang Star have suffered over 80% casualties, yet Commander Sun Aryang of the Luoyang Star Garrison continues to organize the fight. The convoy of the planetary governor of Luoyang Star in the western part of Luoyang Prefecture came to a halt. Gong Sun Sun looked at the convoy that had stopped once more and said, "Secretary Zhang, go check what has happened ahead, why we have stopped again." Sitting in the passenger seat, Secretary Zhang nodded, opened the car door, and prepared to see what was going on ahead. But this glance almost scared Secretary Zhang, who had been at the Luoyang Star governor's residence for over 10 years, half to death. He saw that teacher Sun, who had been drinking with their superior just days ago at the governor's residence, was now dressed in full body battle armor, leading a disorganized group of several hundred people who had already surrounded them. Secretary Zhang hurried back to the hover vehicle, trembling as he looked at Gong Sun Sun in the back seat, and said, "Not good, Your Excellency, we are surrounded." With a laser gun in hand, they were walking towards them. This was definitely an encirclement. At the same time, a blinding light also shone on the hover vehicle where Gong Sun Sun was located. Inside the small interstellar destroyer, Su Ming looked at the open searchlight and activated the external broadcast, saying, "Respected planetary governor, according to the regulations of the Starfleet Command exercise, you are now captured. Next, please do not resist, otherwise we have the right to take non-lethal measures." Afterwards, the combat robots aboard the small interstellar destroyer rushed forward, also holding laser guns. Compared to that group of newcomers, he preferred to trust these reliable combat robots. In fact, it has been proven that even if the Federation has developed the technology of light brains to its peak, it cannot create true life. Therefore, the Arrow who brought him to this era is the most special one. This is also the reason he needed his own interstellar battleship, as only the main control center cluster of the starship could provide enough protection for Arrow. He also showed enough respect to the planetary governor. If he captured someone himself, it would show he had no regard for personal feelings. Over there, Teacher Sun Daqiang opened the visor of his battle armor, holding a cigar in his mouth and a laser gun in his right hand. Pried opened the window of the hover vehicle and said with a smile, I say Gongsun Sun, don't just stay in the car today, I'm taking you to see the world. Sitting inside the hover vehicle, Gongsun Sun had a bemused expression on his face. As the governor of a habitable planet in the Federation, he had seen it all. He instead hoped that Sun Daqiang was joking, otherwise things would really escalate. Gongsun Sun said, it's indeed the masterpiece of your Starship Academy. Now my planetary congressman is probably flying the coop. The captains of the Starship Academy are all a bunch of brash fools. What else might happen this time on Luoyang Star? Sun Daqiang said, that's right. But this can't be blamed on anyone else. According to intelligence reports, someone smuggled dark iron at the first spaceport. I believe you know how precious that stuff is. Smuggling that stuff is punishable by death. If handled poorly, you, the planetary governor, could lose your position. This is no small matter, as dark iron is the most important armor for starships. It has excellent energy absorption and kinetic buffering properties, and it even has the ability to absorb dark matter for repair, albeit very slowly. At least it is still repairing. Therefore, most of the main armor of starships is made of dark iron. It is a strategic resource. Even military suppliers must be escorted with armed guards to transport it. Moreover, it is only transported through stargates. This shipment of dark iron smuggled is no different from smuggling yellow cakes in ancient times. Looking at the intelligence received, Gongsun Sun's face darkened. What kind of people are these? He had already been captured. If he was also labeled negligent or accused of allowing others to smuggle military strategic materials, his future would truly be bleak. Gongsun Sun said, old son, I hope the information is accurate. I want to see who has the audacity to smuggle this stuff. Apart from those established military families and important departments of the Federation, is a matter of life and death for anyone who dares to touch it. Old son chuckled and said, that's right. Don't worry, those people won't escape. They have long been detained. With the interstellar battleship watching, even if they ran to subspace, they would still be dead. People can't outrun starships. Even practitioners who could single-handedly take on an interstellar destroyer cannot withstand an interstellar battleship. Interstellar battleships are equipped mostly with various weapons that impose positional constraints, such as gravity generators. If one does not reach the peak of cultivation, facing a gravity generator would also render them incapacitated. If all else fails, there are also spatial collapses and warp trail attacks. There is always a weapon that suits you. Of course, practitioners are very useful in single combat, so interstellar battleships generally have to be equipped with practitioners to escort and protect the captain when they go out to make a name for themselves and not get decapitated. Then Sun Daqiang called Gongsun Sun onto the small interstellar destroyer. Inside the bridge, Su Ming looked at the late arriving Sun Daqiang and said, Teacher Sun, you are really late, but this matter is surely settled. With so many newcomers and this planetary governor here, this is undeniable evidence. The Zhao family is quite large, but does the Zhao family, which is deeply entrenched in business, dare to forcibly invade the military port? He actually hopes that someone from the Zhao family would forcefully intrude, as it would be easier to pin the crime on them at that time. Intentional attacks on the military strongholds of the Federation with the intention of subverting it is a major crime of treason. Middle-aged Sun Daqiang said, Little Su. As someone who has been through it, I need to remind you that you are now also a captain, and you should at least have the demeanor of a captain. The dark iron smuggled by the Zhao family should be confiscated completely. When we return to Kunpeng Star, the Academy will help you handle it, at least giving you a gold star. This exercise may only be considered an appetizer, but being able to capture dark iron smugglers is a great. Su Ming held a cup of Pepsi and said, what I'm actually more concerned about is the Zhao family's response and the whereabouts of the Huaxin Snake interstellar pirate fleet. I thought they would ambush me, but unexpectedly they are so cowardly. He had made all the preparations, even readying the antimatter main cannon for immediate fire. But now that the stage was set, the people didn't show up. Sun Daqiang chuckled and said, Little Su, don't worry. When the time comes, we'll use our connections and arrange for you to go to the Zhao family's main star to show off on note a visit in the name of the Starship Command to escort the observation group for a visit. These are all minor issues. The Federation advocates for free love, and the Starship Academy also promotes free love. The behavior of the Zhao family is a step back for the Federation. No matter who goes to take on the Zhao family, Sun will lend a helping hand. On Luoyang Star, at the first spaceport within the management building, the Federal 7th Special Operations Brigade, affiliated with the Shanha, has completely secured the first spaceport of Luoyang Star. Don't even mention starships. Even a fly trying to leave this place would have to check with the 7th Special Operations Brigade to see if their laser guns approve. Lin Yuan looked at the bound members of the Zhao family, directly aiming his laser gun at one of them, and remarked, You've got some guts. Do you know what you're doing smuggling ghost iron? You are colluding with the insectoid tribe. The temporary crew from the first television station of Luoyang Star appropriately recorded the scene. Of course, Lord Lin Yuan, the scene of someone being struck with a laser gun will definitely not appear. Hey, you dare to hit me, you filthy scoundrel. Do you know who I am? How much can you earn as a member of a mobile unit? Zhao Wei, who was in pain from the blow, threatened viciously. He is a member of the Zhao family, and in this area there is no one that the Zhao family fears. How dare a mobile unit provoke the Zhao family? It's simply asking for trouble. Once his family member marries into the Dantai family, he will definitely make this scoundrel pay. Lin Yuan did not show any anger and directly put on the insignia issued by the Starship Command. That was then. Now I am the commander of the landing forces under the Shanha Star battleship, and I find that you people are simply courting death. Smuggling ghost iron. How many lives do you think will be executed? Do you really think the Zhao family can escape? It cannot be denied that the Zhao family has indeed been at the peak of their power in recent decades. However, certain unwritten rules remain unbroken, such as possessing star battleships or military versions of star cruisers. These rules have been in place for thousands of years and will not be easily broken. Otherwise, how could those old noble families and conglomerates maintain their overwhelming advantage? What of the highest officials of the Federation? Aren't they still being confronted daily by the star system representatives, and aren't they still subject to impeachment by the regional governors? If they really pushed too hard, they would merely be the next Li Nanfeng. Zhao Wei had finally calmed down at this moment, but he hadn't heard that the Federation had sent a star battleship to this area recently. Just wait, once I'm out of here I will make you pay. At this moment Lu Kun walked over and said, the Shanha has received orders. The Shanha is preparing to land at the first spaceport. Lin Yuan nodded and replied, the orders have been acknowledged. Everything is arranged. The spaceport is clear and there are no obstacles ahead. The Shanha may land at will. With the Shanha landing, how far can the captured star system governor be? These fools are still trying to send out messages, unaware that they have all been intercepted by the Shanha. To think they could send messages in front of a star battleship is simply wishful thinking. Luoyang Star First Space. The massive Shanha activated its anti-gravity systems and slowly descended under the thrust of its pulse engines. The starships remaining at the first spaceport were also greatly alarmed. This was not some civilian star cruiser, nor a beggar's version bought from the warship graveyard, but rather a star battleship that seemed to be unpainted. At this moment, some smugglers were also feeling they had reached the peak of their lives. Smuggling a bit of snowfish meat could also attract the attention of a star battleship. Using a star battleship to catch smugglers of snowfish meat is simply wasting the taxpayers' money. As the Shanha landed, the mech squad that completed the inspection mission surrounded the 7 transport starships of the Zhao family. The 7th Special Operations Brigade also played the role of federal law enforcement, beginning to identify these individuals. Only those who passed the Shan's verification may be released. After all, this is the first spaceport of Luoyang Star, and it cannot be blocked for too long. Not long after, Su Ming also piloted a small star destroyer to the first spaceport of Luoyang Star. When the new students from the Starship Academy saw their senior starship, they were also dumbfounded. Why is that starship so big, and why are its cannons so thick and long? If one shot is fired, wouldn't it shatter a mountain peak thousands of meters high? Sun Daqiang looked at the excited new students and said, calm down, stay calm, you will be able to board the ship soon. At this moment, Shun Yin, who had come along, also did not forget to contact those new students who had already been relocated. Under the protection of battle robots, Su Ming led the governor of Luoyang Star to the management building of the first spaceport. Upon entering the building, Su Ming saw the bound members of the Zhao family. Su Ming walked up and asked, Old Lin, how is it going? Have the Zhao family members confessed? Is there any direct line of the Zhao family involved? This kid has a hard mouth. All he does is threaten, Lin Yuan said with a shrug. I've never seen someone like this. If it weren't for the fact that he was on the territory of Luoyang Star, he would have made this kid understand what was what. Su Ming coldly looked at the Zhao family member who was still cursing and said to the crew nearby, prepare to start recording. What we record will be broadcasted on all channels. But hasn't communication already been blocked? The host asked, somewhat confused. Su Ming smiled slightly and said, that's right, I blocked the communication, so hurry up and record. He indeed did not know where Dantai Yunyan was, but he could let Dantai Yunyan know he was here. No one knew better than him how to find someone. The area was cleared, leaving only the crew, Lin Yuan and the planetary governor. A moment later, the broadcast. Su Ming stood at the front and said, good afternoon, comrades of Luoyang Star. I am the captain of the Federation Starship Shanha. In the past 3 hours, our ship has conducted friendly exercises with the Luoyang Star Defense Fleet and the ground forces of Luoyang Star. We have arrested illegal elements colluding with the insectoid tribe and trafficking ghost iron. The evidence is conclusive, and the criminals have confessed without hesitation. No matter who stands behind these criminals, we will report them to the Starship Command and bring them to justice. Next, we invite the governor of the Luoyang Star System, Lord Gongsun Sun, to speak. A planetary governor must still be given the respect they deserve. After all, they are the local authority. At this moment, Gongsun Sun said energetically, with the cooperation of the Luoyang Star Defense Forces, and the Federation-star battleship Shanha, we fully exemplified the spirit of the Federation capturing the criminals at zero casualties. We have made significant contributions to maintaining the peace and stability of Luoyang Star. I call upon those criminals to surrender quickly, otherwise do not blame me for not warning you. Afterwards, the crew shifted the camera to the already docked Shanha. Inside the first spaceport of Luoyang Star, the footage meticulously captured by the production team of Luoyang Star's first television station quickly fermented across the entire Luoyang Star after modifications by the mountains and rivers. Now everyone knows that the Zhao family is smuggling ghost iron, earning the reputation of federal smugglers. With the cooperation of Su Ming and the planetary governor, who wished to leverage this incident to adjust his position, the situation was firmly established. All information regarding the case has been uploaded to the Federal Supreme Council, the Starship Command, the Mobile Forces Command, and the Federal Supreme Court for record. Such an ironclad case has perhaps never been overturned within the current Federation. Chun Ruowei approached with a light brain and said, "Captain, the Federal Supreme Court has issued a directive requiring us to execute these individuals immediately." Su Ming took the light brain from Chun Ruowei and remarked, "It seems some people are flustered. Killing to silence is indeed an effective tactic. However, this works out well. They need to silence others, and I also need to set an example. Let's use the secondary cannon of the mountain river to send them on their way." Smuggling ghost iron is indeed a capital offense, but executing the death penalty in the Federation requires many procedures. Given that the Federal Supreme Court issued such a directive, it is easy to guess the connection of this matter with the current Supreme Governor Du Tong. But since the Federal Supreme Court has issued a directive as a 3-star citizen of the Federation, he only needs to act according to it. Chun Ruowei said, "Isn't this a bit too high profile?" Su Ming replied with a smile, "We're already very high profile by coming out this time. Trying to be low-key is simply impossible. Doing things high profile while being low-key in life is good. Being too low-key will only make others think you are easy to bully. Just look at the current situation. The mountain river is docked there. Who would think that I am just a newly graduated student? The mountain river represents justice. I understand, but you must have that planetary governor arrange for someone to clean things up," Chun Ruowei stated. "Even if the secondary cannon of the mountain river fires at its lowest power, it will still cause damage to the ground." Su Ming approached the planetary governor, who was calming the public, and said, "Lord Gongsun Sun, I believe you have also received the directive from the Federal Supreme Court regarding me." Gongsun Sun responded affirmatively, saying, "Indeed, I have received the directive from the Federal Supreme Court. Isn't it merely the death penalty? Is there anything difficult about it?" This individual did not appear to be soft-hearted, and one could not help but wonder if they were going to pull some tricks. He had already been frightened enough by Su Ming over the past few days and really did not want to experience any more shocks. Su Ming, seemingly sensing his concerns, directly stated, "Of course, there's nothing difficult about it. However, colluding with the insect race and trafficking ghost iron is too lenient for these individuals. I plan to execute them in a unique manner. At that time, I will need Lord Gongsun Sun to handle the aftermath." The few smugglers from the Zhao family being sent away by the secondary cannon of a star-class battleship was already a considerable honor. One must know that the secondary cannon of a starship can inflict considerable damage on a star-class cruiser. Upon hearing this, Gongsun Sun looked at the dozens of Zhao family members being loaded onto an unmanned transport ship and suddenly understood why Su Ming needed him to handle the aftermath. This kid has a dark mindset. He truly intends to deal with the Zhao family severely. Although Su Ming's identity appears ordinary in reality, who among the graduates from the Starship Academy lacks connections? If he truly pushes them to the edge, he could easily summon a fleet to come. Moreover, it would be a fleet ready for battle, not the sort of nouveau riche merely for show. After conveying the orders, Chun Ruowei was also taken aback. How did they end up sending people onto the unmanned transport ship? Wasn't it expensive to use an unmanned transport ship? This captain truly does not manage expenses and is unaware of the value of daily necessities. Su Ming looked at the nearly vanished unmanned transport ship and directly commanded all hands to battle stations. Any illegal smugglers of ghost iron attempting to escape from the first spaceport are to be executed without mercy. Indeed, he had rescinded the earlier order given to Chun Ruowei. Since he decided to act high profile, he should do so boldly. The secondary cannon of the mountain river quickly locked onto the unmanned transport ship as scorching laser beam. The unmanned transport ship was vaporized on the spot into harmless gas, leaving no ash behind. Using the Starship's cannon to execute criminals is indeed effective and can also reduce pollution. The new students who had previously been relocated and just returned witnessed this shocking scene. Sun Daqiang exclaimed in astonishment, "Xiao Su. Impressive. You truly have the style of your teacher back in the day. Did you record this? It should be shared later to properly intimidate those individuals. Damn. This kid is definitely bolder than Chun Xianming back in his day. Chun Xianming would only act after the fact. This kid, however, directly executed with the directive from the Federal Supreme Court. Such an execution is rare, even in the history of the Federation. Su Ming looked at the over 3,000 new students in the distance and calmly smiled, saying, "Teacher Sun, that was not an execution, but the smugglers from the Zhao family were attempting to escape on an unmanned transport ship and were directly hit by the secondary cannon of the mountain river. The information regarding the Zhao family smugglers fleeing in fear of punishment has been recorded, and all video footage has been uploaded to the Federal Star Network at full frequency." "That's clever. Truly clever. You are indeed resourceful." Sun Daqiang understood. He truly understood that to deal with the Zhao family, such a method had to be employed. Su Ming said, "New students can be arranged to board the ship now. New students can only stay in the ecological park. Your temporary permissions have been updated, allowing you to access the bridge, while the rest should remain in the ecological park. At that time, a team of security robots will be sent for assistance to prevent any unexpected situations. After all, there are 3,000 people. Even if 3,000 pigs were placed in the ecological park, some personnel must be assigned to supervise." Sigh. These new students have caught the best era, but it's also the worst era. Many of their courses may need to be completed amidst the flames of war. Compared to these new students, he was relatively fortunate. After performing a salute of the fleet, Sun Daqiang said, "Accepted, Captain." Under Sun Daqiang's command, over 3,000 new students began the boarding operation. The entire process was lengthy, especially since the 7,000 personnel from the Special Operations Brigade had boarded, while the new students from the Starship Academy had yet to finish. What a slow group. Inside the command bridge of the Shanhua, Lin Yuan, Qian Yin, and Shun Ruowei exchanged awkward smiles as they looked at the empty captain's command seat. At this moment, the main screen of the bridge displayed that all approvals for the Shanhua's launch had been granted. All 5 directions, front, back, left, right, and above, had been cleared. However, the captain was nowhere to be found, and finding a person aboard an interstellar battleship was typically a trivial matter. But to locate the esteemed captain who held the highest authority was nothing short of a pipe dream. Shun Ruowei couldn't help but sigh. Then she connected to Su Ming's personal light brain and said directly, "Captain, all preparations for the Shanhua's launch have been completed, and we are just waiting for your arrival." She truly didn't know what Captain Su was doing. If the launch time was delayed, the process would have to be restarted. Standing on the armament deck of the Shanhua, Su Ming gazed at the bustling first spaceport and said, "Chief of Staff Chun, halt the takeoff. Deploy a team of mechs and a landing force to the armament deck. Someone is coming, and we cannot lose our momentum." Dan Tai Yunyan was Dan Tai Yunyan, and the Dan Tai family was the Dan Tai family. If it were just Dan Tai Yunyan coming, there would be no need to call so many people. However, it was clear that a significant practitioner from the Dan Tai family was also coming. With the starship's shields down, a powerful practitioner could easily execute him. It's better to be safe than sorry. Wouldn't it be reasonable to mobilize a team of mechs and a landing force for his own safety? Far away on the bridge, Chun Ruowei said, "The captain's orders have come. Everyone get moving." At this moment, Lin Yuan smiled and said, "Chief of Staff Chun, I have a suggestion. Deploy all members of the mech squad and half of the 7th Special Operations Brigade to bolster our captain's presence." Chun Ruowei looked at Lin Yuan in confusion, puzzled by his meaning. Qian Yin chuckled and said, "Chief of Staff Chun, you're still young. You'll understand once you're in our shoes." Then several of them went their separate ways, some to notify the mech squad Southwind to replace the anti-practitioner mechs that had been in storage. Meanwhile, the landing force, fully armed with the best equipment, surged from various hatches onto the armament deck. Qian Yin led the flight squad, ready for an immediate strike. She was well aware that once a practitioner from the Dan Tai family arrived, anything unpredictable could happen. If their captain were to sink, they would not fare any better. Meanwhile, within the first spaceport, a finely crafted hyperspace starship suddenly approached Luoyang Star's first spaceport. "Attention, approaching starship. You have not obtained landing permission. Please halt your approach." The announcement echoed throughout Luoyang Star's first spaceport, and all anti-aircraft weapons were put on standby. Inside the hyperspace starship, Dan Tai Jing, who had hurried over from the Dan Tai family's main star, looked at Dan Tai Yunyan standing beside her and said, "My dear niece, are you excited to see your little boyfriend so soon?" Dressed in plain green attire, Dan Tai Yunyan rubbed her forehead and replied, "Aunt, you should worry about your... It's one thing to directly barge into Luoyang Star's first spaceport, but Su Ming Shanhua is right there. Are you sure your newly purchased starship can withstand the main cannon of an interstellar battleship?" Her aunt, who was clearly a practitioner, was not fit to be a captain. She was inexperienced yet overly ambitious. After all these years, she didn't even know to submit a landing request upon entering a spaceport. Dan Tai Jing awkwardly said, "I got caught up in the rush, so I forgot." Then she changed the subject and asked, "By the way, my father sent a message asking me to inquire about the handling of that old lady Fong." Old Lady Fong wanted to meet her son, but unfortunately, she had already been blasted into steam by Su Ming using the secondary cannon of an interstellar battleship. One must admit that little guy was truly ruthless. It's a pity that the marriage between the Dan Tai family and the Zhao family involved too many matters to simply abandon because of a young lad with a star-level battleship. She was in agreement, but the old folks at home were simply too stubborn. Not long after the port application for the hyperspace starship Qinjianhua was accepted, the King Yunshan docked next to the Shanhua. Dan Taijing and Dan Tai Yunyan boarded a small flying vehicle and directly arrived at the armament deck of the Shanhua. Before Dan Tai Yunyan could say anything, Dan Taijing had already gotten angry, clearly targeting her. The anti-practitioner mechs and so many fully armed landing troops. Such a configuration would be enough to take down a main star. How did that kid manage to gather all this? Such equipment was not that easy to come by. Su Ming looked at the still graceful but slightly plumper Dan Tai Yunyan and said, "Yunyan, I've come to pick you up. Do you want to come with me?" Dan Tai Yunyan smiled at her aunt behind her and said, "Aunt, I'm sorry, but I really can't accept that marriage. The Federation advocates for free love. She absolutely would not marry into the Zhao family's eldest son. She had the right to pursue her own happiness no matter how bumpy the road might be." Dan Tai Yunyan quickly withdrew to Su Ming's side, while the mech squad led by South Wind swiftly completed the encirclement. The small standing equipment was also ready to activate at any moment. Su Ming calmly said, "Aunt, you should surrender. You alone cannot break through the encirclement of the entire mech squad and landing force. This is the Shanhua, the federal starship Shanhua. If you attack a Federal Reserve interstellar battleship, you will be sent to a military court. If it were an ordinary starship, perhaps it wouldn't matter, but this was a genuine interstellar battleship." Holding Dan Tai Yunyan's delicate hand, Su Ming was completely unafraid, who didn't have a practitioner. The old general's promised Zhulong practitioner squad should be arriving soon, right? Dan Taijing said in exasperation, "Yunyan, do you know what you're doing? You escaped from marriage, but it was too easy. The Dan Tai family will surely lose face, and that bunch of rascals from the Zhao family will continuously cause trouble for you. Heed your aunt's advice and come back with me. We can take our time to dissolve the engagement with the Zhao family." Compared to the Dan Tai family, the Zhao family is nothing, merely clinging to Dutong. As long as we find a way to dissolve the engagement, there's still room for maneuver. Dan Tai Yunyan seemed to want to say something, but Su Ming directly stated, "And I graduated from the Starship Academy, and I was the top of my class. According to the regulations of the Starship Academy's top graduate, I have the right to issue a summons. I have no qualms about engaging in a decisive war with the Zhao family. Oh, I possess the most powerful main cannon. One shot to annihilate a star." On the deck of the Shanhua, Dan Tai Yunyan gazed at Su Ming with bright eyes, recognizing him as her Ming. If it weren't for her father's incompetence, she would have contacted Su Ming long ago rather than waiting until now. Dan Tai Yunyan looked at her aunt Dan Tai Jing and smiled helplessly, saying, "Aunt, stop. You are already surrounded. You have no idea what it means to be the top student of the Starship Academy in a generation. Or rather, no student from the Starship Academy would dare to speak of such matters carelessly." Su Ming became the top student because he displayed the calmest judgment during the simulated battle with the insect race at that moment. Faced with the onslaught of the insect race's army, he resolutely executed a desperate charge. Meanwhile, their classmates were still a bit dazed at that time. Hence, she was very worried about Su Ming. Dan Tai Jing, who was being pointed at by a mecha's heavy sword, said coldly, "I am a great practitioner recognized by the Federation's Cultivation Association. You cannot stop me with your strength." The current situation was indeed dire, but if she wanted to leave, the mecha units and landing troops wouldn't necessarily be able to stop her. Su Ming said, "Aunt, without the ship's shields activated, they certainly cannot stop a great practitioner like you, but what about the military's practitioner squad?" As Su Ming's words fell, 12 practitioners cloaked in black robes suddenly appeared on the main deck of the Shan. The black robes were embroidered with large candle patterns fluttering in the wind on the armament deck. The mecha troops led by Nan Feng also retreated, giving the Candle Dragon practitioner squad a clear view. At this moment, Dan Tai Jing raised her hand and said, "I cannot contend with the military's Candle Dragon practitioner squad. It seems we are indeed in big trouble." On a regular starship purchased by an ordinary student, the elite practitioner squad of the Federation appeared. This itself was an unreasonable incident, not to mention that it was the Candle Dragon squad. However, it was circulating on the Star Net that the Candle Dragon squad had been retired long ago, so that's how it is. Su Ming looked at Dan Tai Jing and said with a smile, "Dan Tai Jing, you are accused of deliberately attacking the captain of the Federation starship Shanhua and are now under arrest along with the Qingyun Mountain subspace high-speed starship." "Your Excellency Dan Tai Jing, you are under arrest. As for the Qingyun Flower subspace high-speed starship, after modifications, it could indeed accompany the Shanhua. This small and exquisite subspace high-speed starship, while perhaps small in size, had quite considerable defensive capabilities. It could perfectly compensate for the Shanhua's shortcomings in long-range reconnaissance. Sometimes, whether using sensors or optical detection, one could be deceived. However, only real-time detection would not encounter any issues. The Qingyun Flower was 600 meters long, 120 meters high, 70 meters wide, with a bulky middle and slender ends resembling a shuttle. It could just fit into the not yet full hangar. TCH. Dan Taijing said helplessly. I have become a prisoner, what objections can I have? Then under the escort of the Candle Dragon Practitioner Squad and the mecha troops, this great practitioner from the Dantai family was confined to the Shanhua's detention room. The detention room was coated with a layer of strong interaction material and had adjustable gravity devices. Even a great practitioner could not withstand it. Moments later, the armament deck of the Shanhua was left empty. The Qingyun flower docked beside the Shanhua was remotely activated and entered the hangar. Dan Tai Yunyan still had some authority in this matter. Inside the bridge of the Shanhua, Chun Ruowei looked at the woman who entered with Su Ming and finally breathed a sigh of relief. Now she no longer had to worry about any ill intentions from Captain Su. Upon entering the bridge, Dan Tai Yunyan confidently took her seat in the deputy captain's command position. After Su Ming sat down, he looked at the data on the main screen of the bridge and said, Advisor Chen, notify the first spaceport of Luoyang Star that the Shanhua is ready for takeoff. Please keep the flight path clear. Taking off from the spaceport is quite troublesome. It is far simpler than taking off from a starport or an unmanned planet. Moreover, there are numerous information recording devices, and any minor programming error could lead to inquiries. Chun Ruowei replied, Captain, the data has been sent, and the first spaceport of Luoyang Star has agreed to the takeoff request. We can ascend. The anti-gravity device has been activated, the pulse engine has been ignited, and the Shanhua has ascended. Altitude 7,000 meters. Altitude 18,000 meters. Altitude 35 kilometers. Altitude 75 kilometers. The bow is raised 35 degrees. The main thruster has been ignited. Captain, we are entering outer space. The Shanhua was slowly entering outer space, while the defensive fleet of Luoyang Star was fully assembled in high orbit. They watched slowly as the starship that had brought them great humiliation departed. At this moment, Su Ming opened the ship's broadcast and said, First, I welcome the new students of the Starship Academy aboard, and I also welcome the elite Candle Dragon Combat Squad of the Federation's practitioners to join us. Our mission destination is Kunping Star 13,600 light-years away. This journey will be conducted via warp travel. We expect to arrive in 3 days. Dan Tai Yunyan looked at Su Ming and said, You are fishing. The Zhao family's pirate fleet will likely intercept us. Although their strength is somewhat lacking as the captain of a starship, you should still be cautious. As a starship captain, no one knows when an accident will occur. Su Ming sent the data to Dan Tai Yunyan's personal terminal. The Gray Line Serpent has already been thoroughly investigated, and I have long been prepared. A fire broke out in the warehouse of the 7th shipyard of Kalen Star, resulting in the loss of a batch of extremely advanced subspace self-guiding torpedoes. As he spoke, Su Ming directly displayed the attack coordinates of that batch of torpedoes. 50 subspace torpedoes, each 150 meters long and 20 meters in diameter, with a single red attack route highlighted. That route leads straight to the Zhao family's main star. Subspace torpedoes are controlled items of the Federation's military warships. Aside from a few fleets under the Federation Starship Command, no one else has the power to even see or purchase them. Dan Tai Yunyan looked at the red preset attack route and said, How could the 7th shipyard of Kalen Star sell this to you? Su Ming looked at Dan Tai Yunyan's bewildered eyes and said, Your father gave me an authorization many years ago to let me leave you, and then it was used directly. Who would have known it would work so well? Although old Taishan is not much, the authorization in his hands is quite useful. Now Dan Tai Yunyan finally understood how Su Ming obtained the authorization he held. Her father is indeed a fool. He probably gave it to the wrong person back then, and Su Ming never used it. Now her father's expression must be very interesting. Meanwhile, Chen Ruowei felt somewhat helpless as the captain and deputy captain flirted, and she, the unimportant advisor, could only listen obediently. Aside from the 3 of them, the bridge, covering thousands of square meters, was filled with biological robots. 2 days later, the Shanha ship continued to maintain its low warp speed and had exited warp on several minutes. Yet the Gray Line Serpent pirate fleet, which all crew members of the Shanha were eagerly anticipating, still. Su Ming sat in the captain's command seat watching the continuously collated data and said, According to the data, the big fish has already taken the bait. It's just a matter of time before they hook it. In a sense, these interstellar pirates within the Federation severely lack combat experience against military-grade starships. Or rather, the models and pirate fleets that could engage in back-and-forth battles with military-grade starships are likely long gone, buried beneath several feet of grass. Dan Tai Yunyan looked at the data and said, Tracking from a distance of 10,000 kilometers is clearly treating us like fools. I really don't know if the Zhao family is foolish or overly confident. For an interstellar battleship, a distance of 10,000 kilometers is already considered a close defense alert zone. For detection devices that operate on a light-year scale, discovering a mouse hiding right under their noses requires no effort at all. Su Ming looked at the few starships that had been marked and said, That's why we need to unleash all our firepower to intimidate them. They are probably already thinking about how to seize the Shanha ship. However, I actually hope for a greater commotion As I've said before, Union, I really don't mind launching those unmarked subspace torpedoes. In subspace, we won't be under any surveillance. Fools remain fools. How could the nouveau riche understand how complex the transfer of Starship permissions is? Did they really think it was as simple as swapping passwords like with civilian starships? For military-grade starships, the time required for initial binding is the shortest. However, changing permissions takes at least 6 to 7 days to complete. This is also why military-grade starships rarely circulate. Without the assistance of his teacher, the 7th shipyard on Kalen Star would likely dismantle this Shanhei-class battleship for sale. Using her position as Deputy Captain Dantai Yunyan issued combat orders while saying, "But once we do it, if discovered, we might have to resort to becoming interstellar pirates." Indeed, this is a good way to solve the problem once and for all. But clearly it's not worth it for just one Zhao family, especially with the front lines between the Federation and the Zerg. It seems that the embers of war are beginning to rekindle. Su Ming pondered for a moment and said, "Union, this time I'll follow your lead." Perhaps he had indeed become a bit overconfident lately, being able to talk about destroying a habitable planet without changing his expression. At that moment, a red alert appeared on the main screen of the bridge. Shun Ruwei said, "Captain, 7,000 kilometers behind our ship, an unidentified fleet has entered. According to the analysis, there are 2 Qinglong-class cruisers, 7 Xuanhua-class shield ships, and an unspecified number of escort ships, along with a large number of drones." Dantai Yunyan remained silent. This was a moment for Su Ming, the captain, to make a decision. Even though she was Su Ming's girlfriend, she could not overshadow the captain at this time. Moreover, she didn't need to steal Su Ming's spotlight. Su Ming calmly said, "Red alert, raise all shields, shut down observation windows, and prepare for combat readiness level 1 for the entire ship. All military officers engage freely, unleash all firepower of the Shanhei ship, charge the antimatter main cannon to 15% power. Shut down the rear warp field of the Shanhei ship. Let's give these little bastards a bath. Be ready to fire at any moment." Now both the Shanhei ship and the Grey Line Serpent fleet were in low warp speed. In the midst of warp travel, launching an attack, the Shanhei ship showed no signs of hesitation. As the Shanhei ship shut down its rear warp field, the space behind it, which should have flattened out, remained magnified. This directly sent the Grey Line Serpent fleet hurtling out of warp. On the flagship of the Grey Line Serpent fleet, Zhao Qi roared angrily, "Are you all fools? Can't you use the sensors? Now look, we've been knocked out of warp. Hurry up and chase after them. If you delay the young master's business, it'll make you pay." Although Zhao Qi knew full well that with his meager strength facing an interstellar battleship was nothing at all. But since the young master issued the order, how could he not go? Moreover, he heard that the captain of the Shanhei interstellar battleship was a novice. If they captured this ship, then the Zhao family young master would have to kneel and call him father. At that moment, Zhao Quan, who was manipulating the sensors, said, "Commander, the enemy has stopped. It looks like they don't plan to run." Zhao Qi looked at the images detected by the sensors and said, "Then why are you still talking? Hurry up and have the Xuanwu shield ship move up. Whether we can take down this interstellar battleship depends entirely on the shield ship." That was the second-hand shield ship he had bought for a hefty price. Its thick shields and sturdy armor had allowed him to reap considerable rewards during this time. As Zhao Qi's orders were issued, the 7 Xuanhua-class shield ships advanced to form a united shield moving toward the Shanhei ship. In the communication channel of the flying squadron operating the stealth bombers, a noisy exchange of voices erupted. "Captain, this is a Xuanwu shield ship. Shouldn't we bomb it?" Although they were flying stealth bombers, if the opponents weren't all second-rate, they would find it difficult to approach within 3,000 kilometers of a Xuanhua-class starship. Right? This thing has only been bombed during drills. If we blow it up now, won't we all get promoted to ace pilot? Qianyan said, "Our mission is reconnaissance. Don't scare off those little friends." The captain and deputy captain are still thinking of playing cat and mouse. At this point, the communication channel of the flying squadron fell silent. Little did they know that Su Ming and Dantai Yunyan on the Shanhei ship's bridge had heard every word of their conversation. This was one of the advantages of being on the bridge, allowing them to tap into the communication channels of various combat units at any time. Who had insulted them was clear as day. Su Ming looked at Dantai Yunyan, whose face had turned slightly red, and said, "Don't mind those things. It will all come to light sooner or later." Dantai Yunyan nodded, taking charge of the overall monitoring. As the starship's captain, one cannot do everything. Living a carefree life is the true essence of life. As the piercing alarm echoed on the Shanhua, apart from the new arrivals in the ecological zone, who were somewhat panicked, the remaining members from all departments were exceptionally excited. Although being assigned to the reserve service was not ideal, the opportunity to achieve easily obtainable military merits was indeed a wonderful thing. Under the strict orders of Captain Su Ming and Vice Captain Dantai Yunyan, the Shanhua battleship acted with extreme caution, fearing to disturb these military accomplishments. In the mecha launch bay, Nanfeng tirelessly explained, "Brothers, this battle is exhilarating. 2 King-Long-class interstellar cruisers, 7 Xuanhua-class interstellar shield ships, along with a few interstellar unmanned combat drones for escort dared to provoke an interstellar battleship. Such a rich battle I've never experienced in my 8 lifetimes. Let's unleash everything. These are all military merits. As the captain of the Mecha Brigade, Nanfeng was well aware that if the battle truly began, the opposing fleet would not withstand even a single hit from the antimatter main cannon. It was precisely now that the captain commanded this to hone the overall combat capability of the fleet, otherwise such opportunities would not come their way. Don't worry. This bunch of kids won't escape. Few can flee from our hands. In normal battles, they naturally wouldn't dare to deploy mecha troops on a large scale, however, under the absolute suppression achieved by the Shanhua, the opposing fleet was like fish in a barrel ready to be cooked at any moment. As the green light illuminated mechs were launched one after another, quickly dispersing. The aim was to avoid scaring these military accomplishments. If they got frightened and reassembled, it would become troublesome. As the 7th Special Operations Brigade for landing, they could only wait for others to earn military merits. Lin Yuan couldn't help but complain, what is going on here? How come this Zhao family brat is so cowardly, not even using jump ambush tactics? Now the others feast while we just watch. These are all military merits. After being transferred to the reserves from the front lines, he indeed got promoted to Major General. However, when transitioning out of the reserves, if there are no accumulated merits, this rank could revert back. This was the most disgusting thing for him. He couldn't stay in the reserves forever. Lu Kun advised, don't rush. It's just beginning. Once we reach Kunping Star and finish our painting, we will definitely head to the front lines for rare resource extraction. By then we won't have to worry about military merits. His superior had been transferred to reserves precisely because he was too impatient on the front lines. Meanwhile, Zhao Qi from the Zhao family found the current battle quite favorable. Having never commanded a starship, Zhao Qi felt he could rival those famous generals in the Federation, who said a commander from a wild background couldn't surpass a professionally trained captain. Report to the captain, our fleet's main cannon is firing continuously, and we have gained the upper hand in this battle. A certain Zhao family member exclaimed joyfully. If they could truly capture an interstellar battleship, it meant they would no longer have to look at the faces of the Zhao family's direct line. Although sound would not travel in space, the sound of each main cannon firing was simulated based on real conditions. Under the starry sky of this stellar system, 2 King-Long-class interstellar cruisers under the protection of 7 Xuanhua-class shield ships were launching fierce attacks on the Shanhua battleship. However, throughout the entire duration, the main cannons of the 2 main ships of the Huisian Snake pirate fleet, firing in unison for over half an hour, had only managed to reduce the outermost layer of the Shanhua's shield by 3.5%. Unregistered starships had to be treated as one level lower. It was akin to the ancient times when one attempted to sink a battleship using the main cannons of a destroyer. If it weren't for Su Ming's intention to hone the combat capabilities of the Shanhua interstellar battleship, he would have sent these annoying Zhao family members to meet their maker long ago. Simply put, they were mere sparring partners. Yet it was clear these people did not want to be good sparring partners for the main cannon of the Shanhua began locking onto enemy ships without any flashy displays of skill. Only the most basic locking was performed. This was the simplest form of war under the starry sky. Inside the Shanhua's bridge, Chen Ruowei said decisively, report, our ship has locked onto all enemy vessels requesting to fire. Su Ming stood up and said, notify the mecha troops to avoid our interstellar battleship will fire in 53 seconds. From the current situation, it appeared that Zhao family's fleet had served a great purpose in honing all military equipment on the Shanhua. Since the honing effect had already appeared, it was only right to send Zhao family's fleet to meet their demise. Dan Tai Yunyan began compiling the battle record. Sometimes the significance of your contributions depended on the battle record reported to the Starship Command. Writing it elaborately would ensure some preferential treatment upon reaching the Starship Command. The main cannon of the Shanhua began charging immense energy transmitted through the conduits to the main cannon stabilizers. Once the countdown technology was in place, the biological robot beneath the main cannon turret would press the fire button. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Qian Yin leading the stealth bombers began to return, while the Mecha Brigade under Nanfeng's command sank a few small destroyers before starting their return. Just as Zhao Qi breathed a sigh of relief, a certain Zhao family member was indeed dumbfounded, staring at the dazzling lights on the Shanhua's armaments deck. Having watched plenty of military films, this Zhao family member had no thoughts of escaping. Zhao Qi, with trembling lips, looked at the incoming main cannon attack and shouted, damn, the intel is wrong, enter warp speed, hurry up. However, before Zhao Qi's words could finish, the attack from the Shanhua's main cannon had already arrived. The Huisian Snake fleet, which had once robbed passing commercial transport starships, was obliterated into stardust under the main cannon fire of the Shanhua interstellar battleship. In the distance, Nanfeng looked at the Huisian Snake pirate fleet that had been blown to smithereens, saying, they've all been annihilated. Nothing is left, not even the effort to clean the battlefield. In this battle with the help of the Shanhua, they almost sank that Qinglong-class interstellar cruiser. However, mechas were not specifically designed to deal with warships if it had been a local defense fleet operating similar class warships. They might not even reach the combat position. Those on the opposite side are too incompetent, yet they still have the audacity to call themselves an interstellar pirate fleet. Ein and Feng have never seen such brazen individuals. The next day, in the combat conference room, Su Ming gathered all the military commanders of the Shanha battleship to hold a post-battle meeting. Su Ming felt quite satisfied with this battle. Though it was an easy win, it was nonetheless the first battle for the Shanha. The victory was overwhelming, and coupled with previous achievements, it was inevitable that he would earn a gold star under the Academy's operation. This is how the Starship Academy operates. Regardless of one's previous status, once you enter the Academy, you have only one identity. That is a student of the Starship Academy. As long as you are not expelled, even if you just wait out your time, you can eventually command your own starship. Such a situation is impossible in other similar institutions, and the Starship Academy also operates numerous warship graveyards. If any crucial parts are missing, you can go there to scavenge. You are bound to find something. Everyone, this battle went quite smoothly, but I believe you all understand. In the current situation, encounters between starships are rare within the Federation's territory. The main enemy still occupies numerous resource planets, the insect race. According to the latest information directly issued by the Starship Command, the front lines have begun to stir. Su Ming then directly activated the main screen of the conference room, which measured 70 meters in length and 45 meters in width, to broadcast the evening news from yesterday. At that time, they were still in battle, naturally too busy to pay attention to these matters. Next, we will broadcast the latest news from the front lines for all citizens. In the front lines of the battle against the insect race in the Large Magellanic Galaxy, last night the insect race once again launched an attack on Makita's star, with 15% of its territory falling. The Supreme Leader of the Federation, Lord Dutong, has already announced a mobilization order urgently deploying 700,000 landing troops for reinforcement. Su Ming then closed the evening news and immediately displayed the latest information on the screen. Dantai Yunyan pointed to the data on the main screen and said that Supreme Leader has enacted strict controls. Information has been blocked. In reality, about 80% of Makita star has already fallen. Over 100,000 soldiers of the mobile forces have perished, and the number of missing soldiers is still being counted. The entire combat conference room fell silent in an instant. The joy of just having achieved victory was almost instantly dissipated. Su Ming calmly looked at Lin Yuan and the others and said, "Everyone, the insect race has unilaterally declared war on the Federation. We do not have much time left, and the call for assistance will soon be issued. Members within 3,000 light-years of Kunping Star can choose to take a leave to visit family, while the remaining members can use free hyperspace communication devices to contact their families." This was the only thing he could do before the Great War began. As once said, no one knows when war will come, but since it has arrived, they naturally cannot avoid it. As the captain of a starship, he still understood this point. Dantai Yunyan then said, "Everyone need not worry too much. The first batch of summons will certainly not involve us, so there is plenty of time for leave." Ming was indeed too serious. While working, this is not one of the ships under the Federation Starship Command, so there is no need to be so solemn. Lin Yuan slightly nodded and said, "Deputy Captain, my concern is not this. My worry is that if the insect race breaches the defense line that the Federation painstakingly built over a long time, in a short period, the colonial planets located in the Large Magellanic Galaxy will surely face a massacre. That would be a brutal massacre." Lin Yuan, who had been fighting against those damned insects for a long time on the front lines, knew this very well. Those insects that came from the subspace are not at all as devoid of intelligence as the Federation's so-called experts claim. Sometimes he even thought about stuffing those nonsensical experts into the insects' rear ends to see if they truly lack intelligence. Dantai Yunyan said, having spent over 10 trillion credits to build the defense line, it should still be of some use. She had not seen that defense line at the front, but after such an expenditure it should at least be somewhat effective. Su Ming, with a serious expression, said, "No matter how solid the defense line is, there will inevitably come a day when it is breached, just like the Maginot Line in ancient times. The insects possess their own intelligence. Thus the concerns raised by Lin Yuan may very well come to pass. God knows how much those bastards pocketed during the supervision of constructing the defense line. The defense lines right at the front are somewhat better, but the ones further back are undoubtedly substandard. The only lesson humanity has learned from the past is that humans never learn any lessons from history." Qian Yin spoke up, "Captain, if we go to the front lines, the flying squadron will need more unmanned bombers, preferably stealth ones, as the insect race also has flying units, and they are more agile than our drones." Having deeply studied various battles against the insect race, Qian Yin knew that once you reach the front lines, all supplies must be obtained through your own means. Supplies from the rear will always fail to reach you. Su Ming looked at Chun Ruawei beside him and said advisor Chun record these needs upon reaching Kunping Star proceed with procurement immediately. In the universe, the Federation's population is already among the top of all civilizations. However, the insect race is entirely an anomaly. Their swarm tactics have always been insurmountable, which is why the Shanha requires numerous gunpowder-powered weapons. Simply put, they are cheap and simple. Raw materials can be found anywhere for processing and manufacturing. Even without control chips, they can still perform effectively with basic manual control. Nanfeng said, Captain, the mech squad does not require procurement, but I hope the engineering department can modify the existing mechs as they should serve as stable firing points in the war against the insect race. Su Ming replied affirmatively, Deputy Nanfeng, it's great that you think this way. Then the engineering department will comprehensively upgrade the existing 1,200 mechs. Su Ming then instructed Deputy Lin Yuan, please continue with the planetary combat drills. We may head to the front lines at any moment. Everyone then left the combat conference room. At that moment, only Su Ming and Dantai Yunyan. Su Ming gently stroked Dantai Yunyan's long hair and said Commander Lin was transferred from the front lines, don't take it too seriously. Dantai Yunyan looked at the data on her personal terminal and replied, do I seem like such a petty person? However, this war is also an opportunity. According to the rewards announced by the Federation, collaborating to seize those precious resource mines will require the group or consortium to pay a hefty sum of credits. Su Ming took the personal terminal from Dantai Yunyan's hand, and after careful consideration said this is indeed a pathway to wealth. The Shanha has a mineral refining production line, so we can directly refine the ores. Dantai Yunyan inquired, but we still need to be cautious since Lord Du has issued the mobilization order. It indicates that the situation is definitely not that simple. In the Federation's past history, the mobilization order has only been issued a few times. Each time it led to wars lasting over 100 years. Su Ming said blandly, that is why I bought the interstellar battleship. My teachers all think I am not afraid of death, but in fact I am the one most afraid of dying. Since ancient times the only thing difficult is death. Because of the fear of death, one must charge to the front. War is a game for the brave. After effortlessly dealing with the Zhao family's gray line snake pirate fleet, the Mountain River embarked on high warp travel. In a low warp environment, the energy consumed is actually greater than in a high warp environment. Equipped with an antimatter reactor, the Mountain River can capture antimatter from the universe to supplement its energy. However, conserving every bit of energy on the starship is standard for a starship captain. Inside the bridge of the Mountain River, Sean Air said, Captain, the first port of Kunping Star Academy has agreed to our landing request. Shall we land immediately? Su Ming looked at the image on the main screen and said, Helmsman, you may land, but be cautious of the landing speed. He still trusted biorobots like Sean Air as they were not expensive. What was costly was the knowledge within the biorobot's brain, even though biorobots lacked their own souls. No captain would place a biorobot in absolute danger unless they were facing imminent destruction. Prepare to enter the planetary atmosphere. Activate the retro-thrust pulse engine. Activate the anti-gravity device. Open the observation windows. Altitude 16,000 kilometers. As Sean Air reported 3 minutes later, the Mountain River entered the atmosphere of Kunping Star. It descended directly towards the spaceport of Kunping Star Branch, and when the massive Mountain River appeared at the Starship Academy's Kunping Star Branch, the new students, just having enrolled, erupted in excitement, having witnessed such thrilling events so soon. They wondered when they would ever be able to pilot such a massive warship. How many credit points would this cost? A new student said with a sense of melancholy. A haughty young man beside him sneered, this is an interstellar battleship. Barring any accidents, if you can pilot an interstellar destroyer in your lifetime, consider yourself lucky. The new student felt a surge of anger and wanted to argue back, but was firmly held back by his companions. The arrogant youth looked on disdainfully, clearly seeing them as a bunch of bumpkins. That senior was at least a 3-star citizen. What about these bumpkins? They passed the entrance exam to the Starship Academy, but what great achievements could they make? His family had prepared an interstellar carrier for him, but now it felt like the interstellar battleship was even more impressive. That cannon, after all, was truly massive. At the top floor of the first teaching building adjacent to the spaceport at the Starship Academy, standing by the window, Chun Xianming looked at the slowly descending Mountain River and felt a wave of helplessness. He had to admit that his disciple was far more capable than he was. It was his own lack of courage that let love slip through his fingers. If it were in the past, Chun Xianming would have worried about the Zhao family's potential retribution against Su Ming. But now that war had come, everything had to serve the cause of war. Any actions that jeopardized the conflict between the Federation and the Zerg would be met with severe punishment. Chun Xianming looked at the carefully recorded video on his holographic screen and said, Zhao family, you have a path to heaven, but refuse to take it. Hell has no doors, and you come seeking it yourself. Smuggling of ghost iron may seem trivial, but your timing is impeccable. Although it seems absurd, one cannot rule out someone wanting to cover it up. At that moment, General Wei Xing entered with his secretary. Wei Xing looked at Chun Xianming and said, "General Chen Shuaming, long time no see." Chen Xiaming smiled. "Indeed, it has been a long time. Are those old geezers afraid to send you to the front lines for He was already aware of the dire situation at the front lines. To summarize it in one sentence, it was utterly disastrous. The defense line built with trillions of credit points had turned out to be futile. The Zerg had launched a large-scale stellar leap in a star system that hadn't even completed its stellar interference devices. Suddenly, the Federation was caught off guard. The news was still under lockdown. Wei Xing shook his head and said, "I indeed have to go to the front lines, but my main mission in taking the long route is to bestow a rank on your proud disciple, a general under 25, a 4-star citizen. Such an achievement is quite rare in the history of the Federation. However, in the current Federation, such achievements are not uncommon at all. Not to mention a 25-year-old major general. Even a 20-year-old general is not unheard of in the mobile forces. Moreover, the military ranks in the Starship Command are inherently high. The standard for an interstellar battleship should indeed be a major general. Yet those in the mobile forces have gone a bit overboard appointing a 20-year-old as a general. Aren't they afraid of being scared to the point of wetting themselves on the battlefield against the Zerg?" Wei Xing awkwardly laughed and said, "This time I also have a task that requires the help of the Kunping Star Academy." Chen Xiaming seemed to have guessed what it was and asked seriously, "Wei Xing, tell me, what exactly is it? But don't think about making any ideas on these new students. Letting old students or graduates take a stroll at the front lines may not be a big issue. But if it's asking new students to go, that would undoubtedly be treating the Academy's students as expendable." Wei Xing shook his head. "Of course, I wouldn't send the new students of the Starship Academy into danger. I hope to hold a mobilization meeting at the Kunping Star Academy branch. You should be aware of the current situation at the front. I need those graduates from wealthy families to lend a hand. No offense to someone like Su Ming, but that kind of existence is merely a survivor's bias. Starship Academy students from well-off families certainly have fully equipped military-grade starships. Surviving on the battlefield against the Zerg shouldn't be a big problem. However, the starships of civilian students often do not meet combat requirements, even though they are equally brave." After a moment of silence, Chen Xianming said, "That's fine, but I do not wish to receive death notifications for these students. Regardless of their status, they are all students of the Starship Academy." Wei Xing stood up and said, "Then the rank bestowing ceremony should be held simultaneously with the mobilization meeting. This is a great opportunity. Leveraging the name of that Su Ming should attract quite a few people." At Kunping Star, the first spaceport of the Starship Academy. Once the mountain river had steadied, Su Ming and Dan Tai Yunyan jointly drove the Starry Sky vehicle that had been dragged down from the Qingyan Flower. They headed straight for the main teaching building next to the spaceport, while the new students under Sun Daqiang's orders slowly disembarked from the mountain river. This journey would be an unforgettable experience for these new students. Being picked up by a fully equipped star-grade battleship would surely give them plenty to boast about. On the Starry Sky vehicle, in just a brief moment, they arrived at the main teaching building next to the spaceport. They disembarked from the Starry Sky vehicle. Su Ming and Dan Tai Yunyan were immediately surrounded by people, and the security robots trying to intervene found it somewhat challenging. Just as Su Ming felt that although he hadn't been in the academy for a long time, it still had its own legends. Su Ming heard a very organized voice calling Dan Tai Yunyan. Suddenly, Su Ming's expression darkened. "Shan, he tell Lin Yuan to stop playing games, bring people over to maintain order, and bring the 100-barrel electromagnetic Gatling tank that was just issued to him. I want to see if he knows how to use it." He had to admit that his girlfriend's reputation was greater than his own. However, after today, such scenes would definitely not occur again. Dan Tai Yunyan also felt a wave of frustration. These fools truly had no sense of propriety. Were they really that foolish, or just plain stupid? The landing troops of the mountain river, the 7th Special Operations Brigade, received their orders. Under the roar of Brigade Commander Lin Yuan, they moved at the fastest speed, equipped with heavy gear, towards the main teaching building beside the spaceport. They advanced in standard combat formation. This certainly frightened the spaceport management personnel. Were they not here to conquer Kunping Star? "Captain, don't try to save money for me. I don't need your penny pinching." 3rd and 4th Battalions maneuver to the left and right, maintain the guard formation. Everyone pay attention, non-lethal weapons charge. In the battle channel of the Shanha landing troops, Lin Yuan's, those who were hired surrounded Su Ming and Dan Tai Yunyan, both new and old students. Watching the soldiers from the mobile troops charging towards them, they appeared unusually docile at this moment. Although usually these future ship captains looked down upon the mobile troops at the moment when the electromagnetic rifles were pointed at their foreheads. These future captains were all cowardly. Su Ming looked at this farcical scene and said, "Hands on your heads, all of you, squat down. Anyone who dares to resist will be charged with attacking the Federal Reserve Forces and stealing secrets from starships." This was not just a simple farce. Someone must be pulling the strings behind the scenes, otherwise why was no one stepping in to stop it? With Su Ming's orders, the 7th Action Brigade became even more reckless. Meanwhile, these future ship captains were all squatting on the ground with their hands on their heads. Dan Tai Yunyan looked at this scene and said these people are just cannon fodder. Who knows which bastard is orchestrating this? Su Ming lightly snorted, so I need an explanation. To create such a commotion without our teacher being aware this is no ordinary person. Shanha target the main cannon at the 5th teaching building those who pride themselves as nobles HM. Where have all the nobles gone? The true nobility have long perished on the battlefield against the insect race. The dead nobles were not remembered, instead it was the descendants of the survivors who became the so-called nobility. Starship Academy, 1st Spaceport. Shanha entered a state of alert. The Shanha flight squad was fully mobilized. The mecha troops entered a state of readiness, having received authorization from the military commanders. They would not concern themselves with anything else. Obeying orders was their duty. The 2,850mm caliber interstellar battleships main cannon elevated its muzzle, aiming at the 5th teaching building 1,000 kilometers away. As soon as their captain gave the command, Shanha would launch an operation on the planetary surface. The spaceport management hurriedly contacted the director Chen Xuanming, fearing that Shanha might go crazy on Kunping Star. A star-class battleship unleashing its full firepower was not a trivial matter. He wondered which bastard had given the authorization. He seemed to have caught a glimpse of the antimatter main cannon. Can that thing really be authorized? It was simply chaotic. Actually, Chen Xianming didn't need the spaceport management to notify him. He had already witnessed the scene before him. One must admit that his disciple's handling of the situation was quite decisive. In the square, the late-arriving Chen Xianming looked at the Starship Academy students with their hands on their heads and coldly said, Secretary Liu, begin the information screening. Anyone who is not a Starship Academy student should be sent to the security department for screening, and if conditions permit, execute them on the spot. He believed that the Starship Academy didn't have so many fools, or after all, it was an open academy. At certain less critical moments, it was the kind of place anyone could enter. But it wasn't the case that anyone could just come and go. This incident definitely had someone behind the scenes causing trouble. At this moment, Su Ming also furrowed his brows, not expecting that just over half a year since he left, the security of the Starship Academy had deteriorated so badly. Su Ming looked at Chen Xianming and said, Teacher, the causes and consequences of this matter have been reported to the Starship Command. This group of fools is provoking the Starship Command. After all, broadly speaking, he considered himself a member of the Starship Command. Su Ming wanted to see who was behind the scenes pulling those unsightly tricks. Chen Xianming helplessly smiled and said, Isn't it, because you've been too high profile outside? Moreover, you know the situation at the Starship Command. They've suppressed the business sector for too long. The civilian version of starships can no longer satisfy the ambitions of those fools, so they want to test the limits of the Starship Command. The civilian version of starships, in terms of configuration, is not much different from military versions. The only difference is that the main cannon doesn't have that layer of strong interaction material coating. The thickness of the armor is reduced by 80%, the shield strength is decreased by 50%, and the computing speed of the main control optical brain is decreased by 65%. Yet the price still far exceeds that of military versions. Of course, the Starship Command has also made compensations. In terms of comfort, the civilian version of starships has seen significant improvements. Su Ming looked at the fools being escorted away and said, It doesn't matter. When soldiers come, we block. When water comes, we cover. These fools will never understand that the truth lies within the range of a starship's main cannon, and dignity lies within the starship's travel distance. If I abide by the rules, then everything is negotiable. If I disregard the rules, then everything is still negotiable. After all, with Shanha present, we can go anywhere in the universe. He could choose to follow the rules when he wanted and disregard them when he didn't. Who could do anything to him? Today, with the Shanha interstellar battleship in hand, the situation of attack and defense has changed. In the universe, there are very few shields that can withstand the bombardment of an antimatter main cannon, which is currently the most advanced means of attack. As for higher means of attack, they often do not appear in the open. Chen Xianming ignored the self-satisfied Su Ming and directly looked at Dan Taiyunyan, saying, It was expected that you two would come together. Keep an eye on Su Ming and don't let him get too carried away to the point of burning glass. Burning glass would be fun, but what happens after that? Drifting through the universe on a starship. Youngsters, they still don't understand that matters within the Federation are not just about fighting and killing, but also about human relationships. Dan Taiyunyan recalled the attack trajectory of the spatial torpedoes on Shanha, realizing it was something beyond her control. Dan Taiyunyan nodded slightly and said, Teacher, I will do my best. Su Ming calmly said, Teacher, those people need to be held accountable for this matter, otherwise, aside from the deceived new students, the rest will be executed for attacking the captain of the Federal Starship. My people have already obtained crucial evidence. Evidence. If he said he had it, then he definitely did. Chen Xianming said lightly, These are minor issues. Those people will certainly give you an explanation. But don't be so reckless in the future. Scaring people is enough. If you truly blow up the teaching building, you'll be questioned by the dean. Su Ming shrugged and said, Teacher, am I that kind of person? I haven't even disabled the safety on the main cannon yet. Chun Xianming was taken aback. He hadn't disabled the safety on the main cannon yet. Once the safety on the main cannon is disabled, wouldn't it just take a flick of a finger? Alas, tomorrow the military will confer your rank, and there will be a combat meeting. Your draft order will probably come in a few days. This Su Ming really gave him no peace of mind. If he stayed a few more days, wouldn't he scare him into having a heart attack? For Chun Xuanming, the principle of seeking revenge has always been not to wait until the next day. Moreover, as an older man, while the dean of the Starship Academy is right, Chun Xianming is not inclined to listen. His disciple and partner worked tirelessly to escort the new students of the Starship Academy to Kunpeng Star. Yet they fell victim to a scheme. Who doesn't know about the secret engagement between his disciple and Dan Tai Yunyan back then? Back in his office, Chun Xianming directly dialed the communication of the head of the 5th teaching building. Looking at the three-dimensional projection that appeared in the office, Chun Xianming sneered, "LV Dawan, you need to give me an explanation for today's matter, otherwise we won't let this go." Chun Xuanming, you are as unreasonable as ever. Do you have any evidence? Otherwise I will sue you for defamation. So what if this matter was arranged by them? Without evidence, even if the other side knows they did it, what can they do? Chun Xianming calmly said, "Haven't you received any news?" "What news?" LV Dawan countered. Chun Xianming smiled, a triumphant grin spreading across his face. "It seems your connections aren't that impressive. My disciple's ship, the Shanha, the main cannon of the interstellar battleship, has already locked onto your area. My disciple said that if we don't get an explanation, you will truly be finished. Do you know what the firepower coverage of an interstellar battleship means? Are you just bluffing? It sounds like anyone can do that. Anyway, my disciple doesn't mind shutting off the safety mechanism before firing the main cannon of the Shanha interstellar battleship. Though it may be a bit dangerous, it isn't targeting him. At worst, it would just be a misfire. After all, it's a federal interstellar battleship. What battleship hasn't had a few misfires?" LV Daoan's three-dimensional projection twisted with shock. "Chun Xuanming, are you insane? Do you know what you're doing? You could end up in a military tribunal for this. You could be sent to the gallows. Madmen are still madmen, teachers are madmen, and disciples are also madmen. As an old friend of the current head of the Zhao family, I thought I was just helping a bit, but I didn't expect to get myself involved. If it were anyone else, it would just be a show of force, but LV Daoan wouldn't dare to gamble on the decisions of Chun Xuanming's disciple. A person like Chun Xuanming, can his disciple's decisions be anything to gamble on?" Chun Xuanming, sitting back, puffed on a cigar and said, "I certainly know what I'm doing. My disciple's Shanha battleship is said to carry a batch of warp missiles. You say I should be concerned about my disciple? If the coordinates of this batch of missiles are set to the main star of your old friend's home, then it would be problematic." However, at this moment, Chun Xianming was clearly unaware that most of the coordinates set for all the faster than-light long-range weapons on the Shanha were indeed the main star of the Zhao family. So if Su Ming encountered any accidents, then a star-class battleship filled with long-range strike weapons would, in the shortest time possible, turn the Zhao family's main star into glass and reduce the entire star system of the Zhao family to ashes. At this moment, LV Daoan's three-dimensional projection turned pale, realizing that such a situation could truly arise. The Zhao family's main star is not like those of the older financial conglomerates, which don't have a complete defense line at all. The experience of targeted defense in a star system cannot be bought with money. It was built after countless lessons learned, but the Zhao family's main star lacks that kind of defense. Chun Xuanming's disciple's ship could likely penetrate the Zhao family's main star without any hindrance. Then it could wantonly carry out orbital bombardments. LV Daoan asked calmly, "Speak. How much compensation does your disciple need?" Chun Xianming. Chun Xianming chuckled and said, "Old LV, am not the kind of person who asks for a lion's share. Not much, not much. My disciple has recently spent a lot of credits, so just provide 100 billion credits. Lastly, don't disturb my disciple during this time. Tell the Zhao family's eldest son to stay calm and not say he wasn't warned. Young people, they always need to be a bit more spirited, but sometimes the consequences of being spirited can be quite severe. Even the highest-ranking official of the Federation, Lord Du, is no exception. Isn't he just the highest-ranking official of the Federation? Our Starship Academy has produced countless highest-ranking officials over the past several millennia." Even though LV Daoan was already prepared for a significant loss, he was still taken aback. This price was indeed a bit high. After a long while, LV Daoan said, "Okay, but I also hope that the Zhao family's main star doesn't suffer any attacks from subspace or warp-level weaponry. Otherwise, my old friend will fight your disciple to the death." A military version fully equipped interstellar battleship indeed exceeds the conventional configuration of Starship Academy graduates. Generally speaking, the majority of graduates from the Starship Academy are based on large military versions of interstellar destroyers. Only those with wealth would opt for military versions of interstellar cruisers, while some well-off students might form. But students from the Starship Academy, like Chun Xuanming's disciple who directly ride an interstellar battleship, are still relatively rare. Damn it, the 7th shipyard of Kalen should have dismantled the Shanhei-class interstellar battleship sooner. Chun Xianming smiled indifferently and said, "Old LV. Stop with the nonsense and quickly transfer the money to the Shan's account, or you will be blown up later. I certainly won't burn incense for you. These people's bottom line really is getting lower and lower, even resorting to such underhanded tricks. He was sure that if Su Ming hadn't been a bit tougher back, then who knows what kind of trouble might have erupted. Then LV Dawan directly cut off the line. Far away at the Starship Academy's Kunping Star branch, in the 5th teaching building, LV Dawan directly used superluminal communication to send the earlier conversation with Chun Xianming to the Zhao family's main star hundreds of thousands of light years away. He helped old Zhao with this, but he couldn't possibly pay for it himself. This is a blatant scheme. He is merely a director at the Starship Academy. How could he have that many credits? If anything went wrong, he could even be ousted. If he were ousted, those from the Zhao family wouldn't help him rise again. Merchants pursue profit, and in most cases they can only see immediate benefits. Moreover, with the war coming as a director of the Starship Academy, there are many matters he can meddle in. I hope everything I do is right. Since he chose to stand with the Zhao family, there was no way to easily switch sides. The Zhao family. After all, they have that highest-ranking official listed. If this war can be won, then Lord Du will surely be able to serve another term.